Alright, hello everybody, Seagoatin here back with a very different kind of video, not a review this time, not a music video, speedrun or anything random that I usually do. We're gonna have a 2017 Game of the Year discussion, sort of podcast here. I've got two friends who came along, and why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yo, what's up? It's VFXMario on YouTube and Twitch. Actually, kind of been looking forward to this for like the last few days, just thinking about it because I haven't really had a chance to really make a solid list for myself, but this definitely gave me a good opportunity to do so. So, looking forward to it.
And yeah, my name is Shinuchi, and Shinome on YouTube, but Shinuchi on Twitch. And I'm just a regular old streamer, just good
Yeah.
old Joe Schmo. That's it.
So we're doing our 2017 discussion a bit differently than what most people do it like, or most channels do it like, probably. We don't really have categories. Well, we've got two categories. Because 2017 was an amazing year for games. So much came out. We didn't get to play every single game that we wanted to. So we've got a sort of most wanted list, a list of games that we want to go back to that we haven't had the chance to check out. We've got our top 3 each, and then we're going to talk about the games that we actually did play afterwards, which is going to be our top 10, or in the case of Shin, our top 8. Shin, what is a game of 2017 that you didn't get to play that you really badly want to play still?
Neo.
Good one. Good one.
Pretty dude, same. I hate it. I hate how I just couldn't get to do it. Oh man.
Yeah, Neo is on my list too, but let's go a bit into it. Like, why is Neo on all of our lists?
Gosh, well, I would say for me, having played the beta and the alpha, really liked what I was seeing, and they made notable changes over time. But already, it's mainly that, just having the taste of that game before it came out. Really looking forward to it. Me and Shin, like we can both tell you, we've played the entirety of the Soul series and Bloodborne as well, like straight from Demon Souls. We love that series. He's played it more than I have. I've only done each game once, but still, I really like that format. I like the challenge, but Neo is its own thing that I really respect because the combat system is really rewarding with the level ups, and it seems like you can do some really flashy and like really cool combos based on the weapon you do, or the weapon you pick. And it's also the fact that I love the traditional Japanese setting with like the Onis being monsters and a bunch of these like, very Eastern philosophy like setting, and it's just really cool. It's a nice change of pace. Of course, people are going to make comparisons to Dark Souls, as they will, but I think it does enough different to be warranted, and really looking forward to it. When I can play it, I definitely will, because it just looks like it's going to be tons of fun, and the DLC effort is really good as well.
Yeah, exactly. And another reason for me is that, it's obviously done by Team Ninja of Ninja Gaiden fame, which are games that I really like. And I've heard it's kind of comparable to those games, and so that also has me excited about it.
Yeah. From what I've experienced, at least from the beta, game requires a little bit more skill.
Yeah.
Compared to what I've been through with Dark Souls.
Yeah. Oh, actually, if I could just chime in on one last thing. The very minor thing that I like, but compared to the Souls games, I like how each enemy has their own stamina. So you can abuse that just as if they were like, usually when you play those games, you see enemies that tend to have infinite stamina and they can just mash like attacks all day long. But in this game, I like how there's actually a limit and you have to play like this game of patience with them and then get your opening for free. And it's cool. It does some things, like I said, that Souls games would never do, but I like it.
Yeah, it's not just a straight Dark Souls clone, like some people would probably say. It's its own thing. Marcus, another game on your list?
Yep. So this one's, well, I never really got to stream it or really talk about it too much on Twitter, but another game personally for me that I played in the last about a month, I'd say, but it did come out last year, so it really made me feel bad I can't play it, is actually the Sky 5 Complete, which came out on the Switch last year. And basically the reason that I have technically a hold on it, but basically my sister bought it digitally, and I played the starting hours of that game, and it's weird. Like, you ever get this feeling of if you guys ever do it, you kind of go in like so late to this like franchise or series, and then like immediately when I play it, it's so charming. I wish I grew up with this series because I'm really hooked, but I just can't set aside time to even play it right now. But it's great. Voice acting is top notch. I love the mechanics. I love that turn-based, like, tactics strategy. It really reminds me of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is nothing but great things, and Fire Emblem as well. But it's a great game. Presentation is solid. Everything just looks very endearing, and if I just had the time, I would absolutely play more of it.
Yeah, Disgaea has always been on my bucket list for the longest time, like the entire series. I remember reading a review back in 2004 or something when the first Disgaea came out. I never actually got to play the series for the weirdest, strangest reasons. I don't know. I've never actually checked it out, but it's always been on my bucket list, so I definitely want to get to it at some point.
Yeah, for me, it was just that, growing up, I don't know, unless you use like the internet like a lot, like around my teens, back then, I never really got it through word of mouth. Like, nobody ever like talked about it or played it. So it's just like, I just never knew, and it was never on my radar. But man, I'm really looking forward to checking out that series when I can, because it looks great.
Okay, so one game that I haven't played yet, and you guys might grill me for it. I'm just not the hugest fan of the series, but I can appreciate for how great the games are, and I'll get to it eventually. But one game I still need to get to is Super Mario Odyssey for the Switch.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, I figured.
With Mario, for me, I'm just not a big fan of the art style, the art direction. I'm not the biggest fan of platformers in general, but I do recognize that the Mario games have been some of the best games ever released. I've played Mario 64 to completion and Super Mario Galaxy, and I really like those games. So yeah, I'll get to it eventually. Super Mario Odyssey, I've heard nothing but good things, and I've seen gameplay on your guys' streams, obviously. I'll get to it. It's not super high on my list of games, but
priorities, yeah.
And yeah, I'm not gonna talk too much about it because I have a sneaking suspicion that we'll be talking about it later. Maybe. I don't know.
Oh no, who's to say?
Maybe, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. No, that's I'm not saying too much right now either.
Okay, Shin, another game you want to go back to?
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Good one.
Yeah.
So,
I kind of want to play that so bad, but I've never gotten to play it. Sadly.
I feel like it's like that for a lot of people, because one of the biggest things that's like a bit of a shame is that Horizon Zero Dawn or Breath of the Wild, like, they're both great games, but it's a shame that they came so close to each other. So for most people, it's like they had to just pick one or the other, even though they probably really wanted to play both. But you probably would have got burnt out of open world design if you did that. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great looking game, great art direction. Yeah, it's a good game to check out.
Definitely.
Marcus, another game that we haven't mentioned yet, perhaps?
Yep. For me, I think you guys both played this, but sadly for me, I just couldn't find the time, and I really loved what I played of the beginning hours, and if you guys know anything from that should probably give you a hint, is that it is Resident Evil 7.
Oh, yeah.
That is a game that I sadly just could not buy or like really find the time in between work or streaming. And for as much as I loved it, and I'm still, looking forward to it, I haven't really been spoiled for anything, thankfully, but I really just want to play it. I think it's great from what I've been hearing. It's a return to form, and it's what people have wanted for a while now, although I know some people do like Resident Evil 6. But yeah, 7, for a lot of people, it's in their games of the year list as well. And I really want to check it out, because from what I played in that demo, it was really well done.
Yeah.
And God, I just feel like I'm missing out with that one. That's like my number one. Like, if I got to get back to these games, it's got to be that one. Plus, it's also not very long, so it could easily be done at some point this year.
Yeah, I played it and beat it, and it's a really good one. It's definitely a return to form, like you said. It's interesting because it's very different. Obviously, they changed the camera angle, and superficially it looks very different. But it's also, it harkens back to this classic Resident Evil gameplay style. It's a very good blend of old and new. And I'm not gonna reveal if I have it in my top 10 or not, but I did like it, and I had a lot of fun playing it when I should have done more important things at the time.
It's also very short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my third, Hollow Knight.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, yes. See, for me, I'm holding out on the Switch port when it comes out.
Oh, okay. So Hollow
I've actually
Knight.
seen like a whole speed run of that too.
Hollow Knight is this Metroidvania-esque indie game, right? With the bugs. Yep.
Has very beautiful art style. Like I can't touch what kind of art style it has. It's just, I guess it's very dark,
Yeah.
but in a charming way.
Yeah,
So
it
I
definitely
was
has
just
its
very
own like
interested
world
in
building.
it. And it's not just, the art direction's good, it's the actual gameplay is actually amazing too.
Yeah, I've seen it in action a bit. I heard it's a pretty long game too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I've seen from the speedrun as well, that took quite a bit for him to actually finish it. I would definitely love to play that game at some point.
Yeah, for sure. It's not super high on my list, but I might check it out at some point. And then my last game that I wanted to mention is a series that I haven't played yet, but I want to. I'm interested, and I heard this is one of the best ones so far. And that is Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, which came out for the PlayStation 4 last year, and I heard it's gonna get a Switch port this year. So I'm probably gonna be grabbing that and play the game this way. It looks really cool, and can't wait to play it.
Yeah, that's definitely one that's on my radar as well. I only recently, within like the last 2 years, heard about Falcom and their series of games, and I'm more familiar with the Legends of Heroes series, but the E series is always like, they kind of go like brother and sister franchises that they both have, and I've heard nothing but good things about that series. I wanted to check it out. I know one of my friends, Arcadius, he's a big fan of that series, so if I ever have any questions, I can go to him. But yeah, I'm so torn because I really want to get the Switch port, but at the same time, I'm thinking like, oh man, can I really play it when it comes out? So I might play it later in the year, if there's not too much going on. But that one's definitely on my radar as well. I've heard nothing but good things. And if I could just briefly mention someone else, I usually listen to Maximilian Dude and the O Video Games crew, and I've actually heard nothing but great things from Matt, who sings his praises all the time on his podcast, and I've just heard nothing. Yeah. But like in a sea of JRPGs, like that's one of his favorite games last year, and it's like, man, he's someone who's like really critical, and yeah, he found some great stuff to love about it, and it's like, I really, really want to check it out for myself.
That's good to hear. Yeah, the combat looks fun, the bosses look fun. I can't wait to check out the Switch version. So these are our most wanted games from 2017 that we haven't played yet. Now you guys can know which games you can or cannot expect in our top 10. And I would say we should get to the top 10 now. Our top 10 games of 2017. Shin has a top 8, Marcus and me, we have a top 10. And I'm gonna let Marcus take the reins on the first one. What is your number 10 pick for Game of the Year 2017?
Oof, no, no pressure here. Okay, so my first one, actually, I should mention as well, some of these games that are on the list, I don't really think it's a requirement, but some of these we may have not been to completion, but we've played far enough to really be able to appreciate what they're doing, or, where the story's going or what have you. So probably like over halfway for most of these for me. But yeah, I mentioned that because my number 10 is actually Gravity Rush 2, which came out on January 20th.
Yeah.
And that game for me, I started streaming it a while ago, and I just haven't had the time to go back. And regrettably, I miss it because that world, ever since beating the original game, I've wanted to know more. I love these characters. Like everybody's just like I don't know. It's like it's just so wholesome. I love that world. I love even like the little side quests or just like knowing more
Yeah.
about the character building. It's a charming game. The soundtrack is phenomenal. The art style is very pleasant to look at. Some of the best character designs I've seen in a while, and it's just great. I've really had fun with it. It seems like the sequel is doing everything better, whether it be making the scope of the worlds larger and interconnected, or having different power-ups to help you traverse through the world. It's all just great so far from what I played, and I really want to continue it when I can, but that one's definitely one of the games of the year for me.
I have not played the second one, but I did play the first one for a couple of hours. The gameplay of the first one was a bit too repetitive for me at some point, but the second one looks like an improvement, and I like the art style especially, and the little cutscenes with the comic style panels that are just a little bit animated. I like that a lot, actually. It uses its budget very effectively to tell its story, I think.
Definitely.
So my number 10 is maybe a bit of a cop-out. It's not actually a standalone game, it's an expansion, and I'm talking about Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood, the second expansion that came out in 2017 last year. It's I don't know where to start with this one. It's just such a good expansion. I've played a lot of MMOs, World of Warcraft over the years, Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy XIV, and this is one of the best expansions I've ever played. The story is better than some single-player Final Fantasy games, straight up. It's got such high production values, such a great soundtrack. I like the dungeon boss theme, for example. It has some beautiful dungeons in general, and it has this Eastern vibe to it. A lot of the zones are inspired by East Asia, and it looks gorgeous. And the story is just a joy to play through. I like the final boss of the, what is it, 4.0, I think. The 4.0 final story boss. I haven't played the story since then. I don't know how it's progressed, but what I have played of it at the time when it came out was awesome. One of my favorite MMO expansions.
Yeah,
Makes
definitely.
you want to come back to the game.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's really a cop out, since usually like expansions is usually the big annual thing for those games. So it's like, and if you're gonna talk about it at all in the year, it's probably gonna be based on that anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's man, 14 is so great, and I respect everything it's doing. I just know I don't have the time for it if I have to choose between all these other games or things, especially in 2017. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Like, there was a game coming out every month that would either be on radar or would be interesting. But yeah, no, 14 is great. I heard nothing but great things from that expansion. My sister actually played it a little bit, since she frequently played. She's taking a break for now, but she frequently plays 14, and she said that she really liked the expansion as well. But she only played for a few days, so her opinions probably aren't as concrete, I would say. But yeah, definitely good things. 14, I would say, is probably the only MMO I would consider. At least me personally, because I don't really play MMOs, but that's the one that if I ever were to go back into that genre, it'd be the one that I would consider at the top of my radar if I were to check out any.
Yeah, but they are
It's good to
definitely.
hear that too, because in the beginning, 14 was wow, it was pretty bad in terms of optimization,
yeah.
the way it
Oh
was
yeah,
built,
1.0, yeah.
and I was there during that time.
Yeah, it got terrible reviews at the time. I still remember that. But
And
it's
to hear that, I
there's
don't know, to hear that it's good again. I'm
yeah,
like, oh god.
definitely. There is a great documentary on YouTube done by
Yep.
Danny O'Dwyer from GameSpot, and it goes into detail how they reshaped the game, how they literally rebuilt it to be the game that it is today. It's a very insightful documentary. You should check that out. Okay, so that's our number 10s. Number 9, Marcus, what game do you have for us?
Okay, so this one's gonna be a little tough. I was kind of torn on, thinking maybe I should place it higher, but well, I'll get into it. And this is definitely something that you're gonna talk about as well. So you go 10.
Okay.
is Tales of Berseria is my number
Oh,
9.
okay.
And that's not to discredit it because obviously I had a great time with it, but it's weird to explain. It's like this is this is a return to form compared to most other games, like Resident Evil 7 is one. But this, for me, being a long running fan of the Tales series, Zestiria really didn't do it for me. It like I played like I tried forcing myself to play like within like the first beginning hour. It just did not interest me whatsoever. It felt kind of flat, to be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was pretty much like away from the series for a while because I just could not get into that one. But Berseria is what I wanted for a while now, having played some of my favorites for those who are fans is Tales of Symphonia, Tales of the Abyss, and Grace's F is my favorite, but not for all the reasons. My favorite reason is actually the combat system, which I was very surprised that they brought into Berseria, because that was the I guess the strongest part of Grace's F for me, because the story had some problems. But when it comes to Berseria, it's a great return to form. The cast is great. The voice actors are excellent. Music, of course, with Motoi Sakuraba is like once again really great. But the thing for me is just that like it's a return to form. I just hope they keep it. But overall, from the hours that I played, I want to go back to it at some point. But yeah, definitely one of the best games last year. It's good to see a game in the series that's finally like really good again that I could just recommend.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people praise the combat in Crazy's F, and so I'm glad that apparently Berseria takes a lot of ideas from that game. I personally have not played Crazy's F, although I do own it. I haven't played a lot of Tales of games. I've played a tiny bit of Symphonia. I played about 20 hours of Vesperia. I wasn't a big fan of it, to be honest. And I played one of the Cilia games too, but the series hadn't really clicked for me until Tales of Berseria. Just whenever I checked out footage, I don't mean to, to be offensive or anything, but it's always seemed sort of mediocre to me. Like it's a low budget JRPG that's not bad, but not as great as some of the alternatives that you have out there. But when I played Tales of Berseria, that really changed my mind. I loved the characters in that game. I think they're just so well written, especially once you get towards the finale and you see how they develop. Just phenomenally written, in my opinion. There are great interactions between the characters. There is a cutscene in the game that literally made me shed tears. It's so beautifully done. It's the English voice acting in Tales of Berseria is great as well. The soundtrack, not all that great, although it does have a couple of standout tracks that I do like a lot. So yeah. I think it's a great pick for number 9. And it's in my list as well, although it's a bit higher than that.
No, that's fair. I guess just the one last thing I was going to say too was that I definitely see what you mean about it, being kind of mediocre or like middle of the road. But for me, at least, playing the series, that's what I kind of liked about it, because it was kind of charming in how it was like a little bit behind the times when like you see all these other games being like super ambitious. And I don't mean to say that it's not being ambitious in its own way, but I also like seeing games like this that have like what seems to be a modest budget, and they still, make a game that's fun to play and it just really works, because it's one of those games where, like, if I'm being honest, I feel like mid-tier game development is kind of dead nowadays. And it's cool to see games like that still going and succeeding and, getting decent sales, because I kind of wish more games were made like that. I don't think every game has to blow my mind. It just has to be a fun time to play and I can really get immersed in the world, But a lot of games kind of seem to just overdo it and kind of blow the budget that they can't make back. So it's cool to see Namco still supporting this.
Yeah. On the other end of the spectrum, you get games like Final Fantasy 13 back in the day, which had a huge budget and spend it all on visuals and stuff like that.
Oh gosh.
I think it was commercially still very successful, although critically not so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was your number 9. Okay, my number 9, and then we'll get to Shin's number 8 afterwards. But my number 9 is a game that's probably on your guys' list. I kind of feel guilty putting it at number 9. I haven't actually beaten it, but I probably put in 30 plus hours into the game. I like it a lot. I just don't think it's amazing. And that's Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda. Let's do that again. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Many people's game of the year. I think it's a very good game. It has a great open world. I was very skeptical of the open world at first when I heard that they were going into that direction. Because sure, they may have done it with the first one on the NES way back, but to do it in 3D and on such a grand scale, I was very skeptical. I think it worked out well. The shrines, the little mini dungeons that it has, I think they're really cool. They're really varied. Some of them are just combat practice essentially. Others are like these mini puzzles, and it's got great visuals. I sort of like the minimalist approach to the story as well, and the big dungeons, of which I've only done 2. I like those a lot as well. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of the game, but I still think it's a very good one, and it's my number 9 pick.
That's really fair. You probably heard some of my issues on stream.
Yeah.
But I guess before I go into it, Shin, is Breath of the Wild on your list at all?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Because I'll be, it might come as a surprise. It is actually not on my list of 10. It probably would have been 11, but if I'll be honest, for the time that I put into it, I didn't feel like I got much out of it. And that's a subjective thing, and I know that. But I can only go off of my experience, where the first opening minutes are fantastic. I love how it's this secluded plateau, and you just go around and explore at your own leisure. And I love how the game doesn't hold your hand, and it does open world design better than most Western games, because I feel like most Western games just cram the map with icons and things to do, to the point where you can't really decide what you want to do because there's too many options.
Yeah, Ubisoft.
Whereas if you don't show anything, definitely, yeah. And it's just like if you don't tell me anything, after when you get the glider and you can just go wherever you want, it's exciting. I can just choose whatever I want to do, and that freedom is great. My biggest issues, though, are some of the design choices they made, mainly with the Korok seeds. I feel like that is way too much of a waste of time. Do not go for 100% completion if you haven't played the game yet. Get some of the upgrades. Don't really worry about it too much, honestly, because it's I don't mind how to explain. I don't mind a collectible that's throughout the open world that you have to get. But what I do mind is the fact that it kind of feels half-assed, in the sense that it's a lot of puzzles throughout, but they're all the same. It's like a template of 10 of them spread out, and it really felt like padding, and it didn't feel like it was worth the hassle of tracking it down, even with the more optional harder things you can do. So yeah, I guess you could kind of say it's more so that there isn't really a great post game to the game, I would say. But the only other personal thing, if I just had to say one, was that from a series that I think kind of prides itself on this stuff, the soundtrack was very disappointing for me. And that might seem like a minor thing for some, but for me, the Zelda series I've always thought had consistently great music and great and memorable tracks within each game. Even if you didn't particularly like the game or had some problems, at least that was one of the things that would be consistently good. Breath of the Wild kind of goes for this minimal approach to things, but I feel like it went too minimal. Or I felt like, I don't know who was a composer on that end for the game, really under-delivered for me. Whenever anybody shows footage of the game and they have to put music in it, they always do either the main theme or they do the Hyrule Castle theme in the game.
Yeah.
And that's it. Those are the only two that stand out, because they're reprises of old things that you remember. But it's there's nothing really new. There's nothing really original about the soundtrack. And if there is new stuff, it's kind of laughable. The one that I always cite is the one where you go and fight Hinoxes. It just sounds like someone's just slowly dying in the instrumentation. It sounds like they're just tripping over the instruments as they try to form this melody that it just sounds so clumsy to me. But yeah, it's a little disappointing for me. The story could have been better, but I understand that with the open world constraints, you have issues with that. It's hard to design for open world and having an engaging story. But that was okay. Everything else is just like, maybe it's because I got overhyped, but I just wanted more. It just felt like it underdelivered for me on the whole.
Yeah, I feel your pain. With the music, yeah, they definitely went a different direction, more the atmospheric route, I guess. And some people will like that, some people not as much. Did you 100% it, Marcus? You did, I think, right?
Mostly.
Mostly, okay.
I didn't do all the side quests, and I didn't go for all the armor upgrades.
Okay.
But I did do half of the Korok seeds, and I did all of the shrines and all of the DLC that was out at the time.
So,
but Shin can probably tell you about the 100% experience more so than me.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Oh gosh, 900 Korok seeds is a bitch.
Oh god.
Excuse my language. I'm still thinking about doing it, since I'm a freaking completionist myself. But at the same time, that is a literal waste of time trying to get a golden piece of poo at the end. Not gonna lie.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't do all 900, obviously. I've put between 30 and 40 hours into Breath of the Wild. And when you, for the first time, when you see this circle of rocks for the first time, where you see, okay, there's one rock missing in this perfect circle of rocks, and conveniently there's this other rock right over there, 2 meters off. What happens if I pick up this rock and put it into the circle and complete the circle? When the first time you do this, you think, oh, that's kind of neat that they actually made that a secret little puzzle. But when you do it for the 10th time or the 15th time,
yeah, it just goes thin.
Yeah.
Sorry, one thing I was gonna say as well, that I'm not gonna rag on it the whole time, because there are some genuinely great things about Breath of the Wild. It is on people's Game of the Year list for a reason.
For sure,
usually number one. But one thing that I will say that I really like with the series going forward is I love how the combat's been greatly improved. It's not perfect yet, but it's as great as it's ever been in terms of like 3D Zeldas.
Yeah.
I like how finally they've implemented one of my favorite things, and this isn't really spoilers, but if you ever go into a test of strength shrine, I really love how finally that's the combat fully realized, where you have to think about your environment, you have to use whatever you can to your advantage, and that's what I've wanted from the series for years now. I didn't want it to just be like the same one, like, you guys know the joke where it's like, oh, you just got the bomb, let me go to the end of the dungeon boss, and it's like, oh wait, the weakness is bomb, and it's like, who would have thought that? It gets very old, and they've kept that formula for a while. But I love how in this game you start off with all the tools you need, and you just have to think outside of the box. Going forward, I hope that's a mainstay, and that's probably my favorite part about the game so far, is just how it gives you all the tools from the start, and you got to make do and think, because they're all very freeform. They're not just bombs, are not just a hook shot with like a specified target. It's like you have stasis, which you can use on enemies or situations, or you can, like, if there's a body of water, you can freeze to make platforms, or even like block yourself from other things. Like it's great. I hope they keep that going forward, because some of the design choices are admittedly great.
So would you guys agree, Breath of the Wild, great game, but not a great game to 100%?
Definitely, I'd say
99%
the end game is
fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say just the end game suffers a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So definitely go at it. If anybody's new to playing it or plan on playing it, just go at your own pace. Whenever you feel satisfied with what you did, just by all means, like, stop there if it feels like it's getting a bit too repetitive.
Okay.
I'd like to mention something else too about Zelda. The DLC was okay, at least.
I didn't play that.
I like the. Oh, okay. I won't spoil.
You can spoil away. It's no big deal.
No, the actual final boss fight for the DLC was actually great. More
Okay.
so.
Okay.
For some reason, I liked it a little bit more than Ganon. For some reason, but Ganon was a little bit more epic.
Mhm.
Ganon felt more way too quick. When you're equipped to the point that you could just completely destroy him, it just makes the fight really stale.
Okay.
While the final boss fight in the DLC felt more challenging. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. So that was our number 9 picks, and Marcus and me have had the picks so far. So I would say let's start with Shin for the next round. What is your number 8 pick?
Ooh, this is a tough one.
You can do it.
I'm gonna choose.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 7.
Oh.
The biggest reason is that it's extremely short for me. I felt like it needed more content.
Okay.
But it was short and sweet. The only thing I
definitely.
put it down at the bottom is just more so that I haven't tried the DLC. But maybe if I tried the DLC, I'd probably put it more at the top.
Mm-hmm.
The horror aspect was fine. The only thing, I don't know, Marcos, if you mind the spoilers for Resident Evil 7 at all?
It's fine. I've heard some things.
Okay.
Yeah.
You only go against one enemy most of the time.
Mm-hmm. I do know about that.
And you just go against the family. Mostly one enemy. The amount of variety in terms of enemies is lackluster in Resident Evil 7. The bosses are fine, though. I won't lie about that. The amount of enemies, just... Where's the variety?
Yeah, not a lot of variety, that's true.
And it also contributes to the amount of, horror aspect the game has. Like, oh, I just keep seeing that one enemy all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
And especially since I'm a big horror fan, like, Resident Evil 7 was good in terms of horror, but just not good enough.
Did you like it
At
more?
least for me. I think other people would say they find it a lot better in terms of horror. I agree with that, and compared to the other games. Yeah. Especially with Resident Evil 5 and 6 together with 4, those were not meant to be scary. At least in my opinion. That can change with others.
Definitely, yeah.
But
that
compared
was
to like 1, 2, and 3, it's hard for me to compare between 7 and 1, 2, and 3. To go with 0, too. I don't know. Together with how old the games are and how the tank controls contributed to the amount of horror the first games had, I felt like they were a little bit more scary in that aspect where you didn't have too much control.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the controls themselves were still bad. I don't know if you know what I mean here.
They take some getting used to, but I don't actually mind them.
They take some getting used to.
Yeah.
But yeah. But the ending to Resident Evil 7 wasn't so bad either.
I liked it, yeah.
I like the ending to Resident Evil 7. And that I will not spoil for Marcos.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite Resident Evils, but I do like it more than 5 and 6.
Yeah, I like it more than 5 and 6 for sure.
Yeah.
I'm guessing for you guys, if anything, it shows more promise in like the future, and that that alone is worth it.
Yeah, and I do like that it's mostly about new characters as well.
Yeah.
That was your number 8 pick, Resident Evil 7. Marcus, what's your number 8?
All right. So number 8, I'm gonna try and keep it focused since it's a series that is near and dear to my heart. But the number 8 is Fire Emblem Echoes: Shadows of Valentia, which came out last year. So I'll try to keep it as concise as I can. I never played the original Fire Emblem Gaiden. Of course, most people in the West didn't, because that was Japan only. So the thought of a remake, and let alone a remake of a game that most of us never got to play, is really intriguing. I was skeptical, thinking like, how much would they change or what would they do? And they've kind of taken a very interesting approach to a remake. I don't think I've ever seen a game quite do it this way, where there are some problems, which is why it is a little low on my list. But I still would recommend any of these games, mind you. But it's weird. It has all of the old map design. It has all of the old quirks to the original game that I've heard before playing it. And yet the presentation is phenomenal. It's the best that Fire Emblem engine that they use has ever looked. The music is great. The thing that really floors me though is the localization and the characters in that game. If I have to be brutally honest, I like and respect what Awakening and Fates have done for the series, but and I think it kind of shares sentiment as well. Their writing has not been the best, and going from the older games, I wish it could have been a little bit better. And I don't think it's ever been more relatable than what that game that came out last year, because that writing is great. That writing feels like those characters I would actually really want, like in real life. Like those characters feel relatable. They feel right at home. They feel like they have their own goals and motivations for stuff. And it's great. It's great writing. These are some of the best characters I've seen in the Fire Emblem series. And while the maps are the biggest problem, that is the one thing that I really can't defend, because it's the second game in the series by order of release. Although it is a remake, but it is interesting how they've kept it, but it is a very odd thing. You'd think they would change that. One nice feature that they did, though, that I hope is a mainstay in terms of accessibility, I actually like Milla's turn wheel. And for those who don't know what that is basically an option in the game where you can roll back a few turns if you messed up an execution or something that you wanted to do, and you can just turn back the clock and redo that. And I really like that, because most strategy games don't really give you the option to like redo something if you just did one slight problem or one slight misclick, and then you got to go through all of the punishment that goes along with that. So it's really cool to see like pretty much an undo button in the series, and that's really great. But overall, that game is fantastic, and I definitely recommend it for anybody who wants to get more of a feel of what the classic series was kind of like.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I'm a big Fire Emblem fan myself, and I played and beat Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. I do agree, it's presentation-wise, it's the best Fire Emblem game so far, even though it's on a handheld. It's got almost complete voice acting, which is awesome. The menus and everything look very slick. Even little things like the auto-advanced dialogue is really helpful. The characters, there are not too many characters, but the ones that are in the game, they're well written, and you feel like they're actual characters. The soundtrack is great. It has one of my favorite, how should I say this, final map themes in all of Fire Emblem.
Absolutely, yes, I will agree with that.
It's gorgeous, but also, like you said, the biggest problem of the game are the maps. I would say it's the best Fire Emblem on the 3DS if it wasn't for the maps. They're quite archaic, they're really simple, it's borderline unfair sometimes, I would say. But it's still a fun game to play through for everything else it has to offer. And Mila's turn wheel, I'm glad that you brought it up. I actually prefer that system over battle saves. It's a really cool system. You could argue that mid and late game you have too many rollbacks or whatever you want to call it, but it's a great system that I hope they're gonna keep for future Fire Emblem games.
Definitely
great game.
Yeah, and if more remakes can come in the future, that'd be great, because I heard this game didn't do as well as Fates or Awakening, but it did do moderately well. So I'm hoping, they've mentioned that they want to plan on doing more remakes in the future. So here's hoping, because there's a lot of games that us Western fans just never got to play. So if they can get to remaking those, that'd be fantastic.
Yep. And my number 8 is a game that we don't actually need to talk too much about. It's a series that pretty much everybody has played to some extent. And that's Tekken 7. It's just, great fighting game. Great 3D fighter that came out in the arcades a couple of years ago, but made it to PC and console back in 2017 last year. And I just, I've always been a fan of Tekken, and I like that I can play it online easily nowadays. Traditionally I've been, I guess, a fan of 2D fighters a bit more than 3D fighters. But what I like about Tekken 7 especially is that it's all about combos, and the combos are actually a bit easier to execute than in most 2D fighters. Although Tekken 7 has its difficulty elsewhere, like movement is very hard in the game to master that. And when you see pro gamers move around and play footsies in Tekken 7, it's something else. But combos are a bit easier to execute, and I like that a lot. I like the characters, most of them in Tekken 7. The soundtrack of the Tekken games has never been, I don't know, speaking to my personal tastes all that much, but it's still a fun game to play. I don't know. Do you guys have any input on Tekken 7?
I do, since I did buy it, more so on impulse, but I have played it a bit here and there. Just haven't really been streaming it too much. But yeah, the soundtrack for Tekken games, it's weird. They fit the mood, and it's like, they're all like very energetic and like a lot of good like techno and like remixes, and that's cool. It fits for what's there, but you don't really remember it, I would say. But it does fit the mood. But yeah, it's if you guys are looking for any fighting games, I would say this is one that you should consider if you're a fan of the Tekken series. I mean, come on. But also, if you were worried about what they did, because some people kind of fell off with Tekken 6, and I know that's a big point of contention. I never played Tekken 6, but I do know about some of the problems they have. Tekken 7 is a return to form. A lot of players are sticking with it. You'll still find tons of people online, which I know is a concern of some people.
Even on Steam.
Yeah, definitely. Even on Steam, like with the install base usually dwindling with fighting games, you can still find plenty of matches now. Presentation is the best in the series. It looks great. Whether you're on PS4 or PC, it looks incredible. Like even the way that it's like seamlessly goes from like cinematic moments right into like the in-game engine as you start fights. It's something else. And there's definitely tons of cool like cosmetics or like even like treasure battles or arcade or like the online. There's tons for you to do. There's even, of course, the infamous Tekken Ball, which is actually, no, not Tekken Ball, but basically like Tekken Bowling, which is like a side bowling mini game that you can just do whenever. It's weird seeing some of these characters that would literally just murder you anywhere else just up for a game of bowling. Like it's nothing. But no, the game's great. Definitely, if you're a fighting game fan, I don't even need to tell you twice. You should really consider it. It's more of a complete package than most other fighting games, I would say.
One thing I will add to that is that don't expect too much of the story mode if you haven't played it yet. It's got some great cutscenes that visually look great, but the story is a bit all over the place and nonsensical.
It ain't no injustice to. And I will say, if this is your first Tekken 7 or your first Tekken, Tekken 7 will be it'll be a confusing mess with the story mode because most of it kind of banks on you knowing the history of these characters and keeping up with it. But at the same time, you don't need that to enjoy the game. And if you're new, you're gonna have tons of fun trying to learn your character and like learning the ins and outs because there is a lot of depth to that combat. So
definitely. Shin, what is your number 7 pick for Game of the Year?
I'd probably say Zelda.
Breath of the Wild?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to add something, or we've already talked about it?
I can add something about it. More so, the story did not get to me as much because it hardly had any story. But the gameplay was what made me put it up top because of the amount of variety in terms of combat, how I go about the terrain, the amount of enemies I go against. And the amount of armor, weapons that I find, of course, since they don't have much durability, it's kind of sucks. But you got enough to actually survive throughout the whole world, and you always have weapons at your disposal most of the time. The only bad part is that just trying to keep the best weapons that you just never use ever.
Yeah, it's like either hoard or actually use them. You can't have both.
But when you actually use them, and of course if you go against a Lionel or two or whatever, it actually is pretty damn cool. I don't know, trying to find the best weapons, trying to find the best loot, trying to farm for loot and all that. Together with some of the bosses as well. Even though the bosses in Zelda were kind of lackluster
Mm-hmm.
in terms of design as well. Except for the final boss in the DLC. I'll take that one was actually creative.
Yeah, since you brought up the weapons, one issue that I had on that front was that it took me forever to find that NPC where you hand in the Korok seeds to expand your inventory. So for the longest time, I was running around with, I don't know, maybe 6 weapon slots or something, and I just had to keep throwing weapons away that I found.
Yeah, it's kind of rough with 6.
Reason for these Korok seeds.
I wish they made that at least a bit more clear, considering that it is something that a lot of people complain about. It'd be nice if you just knew like how to find the guy faster or something, or like make it like a side quest.
I actually had to look it up.
Yeah.
I think I just had the most game time on Breath of the Wild alone compared to the other Zeldas, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you were streaming it for ages.
You get your best bang for your buck with that game.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
That's why I put it like above Resident Evil 7, because it has a lot of content. As well as the amount of variety, the experimentation you can do with the game too. I found myself enjoying that more, and honestly, with Resident Evil 7, I actually returned my copy after I got platinum on it.
Okay.
Because I found myself not wanting to come back to the game versus Zelda, which I'm like, oh, I have to come back at some point. I need to do Master Mode. I need to do all these things. I need to do 99%. And then if I'm insane, I do 100. I'm an insane person, so I'm actually still thinking about it.
Okay.
I'm a real completionist at heart, in a way. But that's pretty much it. That's what makes it go above Resident Evil 7 for me.
Okay, fair enough. Marcos, your number 7 pick?
All right, so this one should definitely not come as any surprise. If you know me on Twitter, if you know me on Twitch, I will briefly mention this, and this will give away what it is. But for context, this is being recorded on February 2nd, and basically, Dragon Ball FighterZ is a new hotness right now. Everybody's loving it, but I have to put this on my list because there's no way that I'm going like any second of this without acknowledging this fantastic game, and it is Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2, which came out on May 26th last year. I have not been able to stream it as much as I wanted to last year, but I have been playing it in offline matches, or if I ever just feel like, casual day, I go into ranked or, just play people on PSN. It's a phenomenal game. Arc System Works, for those who don't know, they're particularly known for making a lot of anime fighters, the main two being Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, or BlazBlue, however you pronounce it. But that game, to me, I never played a Guilty Gear game prior to the Xrd series. I started with Revelator 1, which is the improved version of Sign, which came out earlier, and Rev 2 is pretty much the seemingly final version. It's been a while since they've really done any patch updates or anything, so it might be in the books. But the game's great. It's one of the first games that I've ever really felt, as someone who has played a lot of fighting games in my time, but never really stuck with them too much. Guilty Gear Revelator and Rev 2 are a very nice surprise, simply for the fact that presentation goes a long way for me. The soundtrack is phenomenal. You can pretty much listen to any piece of soundtrack from like the series history, and it's all great. It all fits the mood. You just want to go and punch someone in the face because of how great that soundtrack is. The visuals are phenomenal. If you know anything about fighters, it uses the same 3D engine. It pioneered that engine with Guilty Gear, and it is some of the best like anime presentation you could ever like hope for. Honestly, it looks absolutely stunning. It's gonna hold up for years to come, and it's fully featured. It has one of the best tutorials I've ever seen in a fighting game. It got me up and running within the span of like an hour, and I could do online and actually get some wins. I would actually say that it has a better tutorial than Dragon Ball FighterZ, but that's neither here nor there. But it's really cool how it does it because it almost makes a tutorial that's usually pretty cumbersome into an actual mini game, and it's very intuitive in how it teaches you.
Mm-hmm.
And because it is the second iteration of the game, it has some phenomenal character specific information that you can just get right from the game. You don't got to look up matchup data, or you don't got to look up what the preferred moves or setups for characters are. It's all there if you want to. And it also has combo trials. Like everything you could want from a fighting game to learn how to get better at it, it's there. It's great. It's one of the best like beginner friendly fighting games I've ever seen, and it's phenomenal. The game is just so fun to play. Pressing buttons feels good. It's like a lot of anime fighters. It's very fast paced. You have air dashes. Everything is just fast. So you always feel like you're doing something cool or flashy. It's still arguably my favorite fighting game yet. It's great. If you didn't pick it up at all, it is on PS4 and PC, and I can't recommend it enough. I sing its praises all the damn time.
Yeah, I've played it a little bit, actually. I played a couple of hours of Sign and of the first Revelator. And, one thing that it has going for it, it has a lot of systems compared to something like Street Fighter, like Roman cancels. I still don't even know what they are exactly. And it's got all kinds of different things. There is so much that you have to keep in mind at every single moment when you're playing the game. It's got a very, very high skill ceiling from what I can imagine.
For sure. I'm still not there yet either, but it's also it's more so just having a lot of options, but it all depends on how far you want to take it, of course. I consider myself intermediate when it comes to fighting games, and I could still get some wins here and there. I usually get bodied, but it doesn't change the fact that I have fun still playing the game and doing it. And that, there's a high skill ceiling, but that always means that there's something to strive for, and there's always something you can improve if you put in the time.
Yeah, for sure. You did mention the tutorial. That's a new tutorial, though, that they added for Revelator 2 or Revelator 1, isn't it? I think
Revelator 1.
Yeah, they had something different for Sign, I think.
Yeah, it was a little bit more bare bones, which is why I know people kind of rag on fighters like tutorial right now, but it's also because when it comes to Arc System Works, they usually do, like, when it comes to updated versions, they kind of care about it more than I would say Capcom, if I'm being honest, because they also use the player data that they have from the initial run and incorporate it into helping other players learn if they're picking it up new. And you really don't see a lot of fighting games do that in terms of like trying to give you more tutorials or things to learn. Like, there are legit like setups and things that you need to react to, or they will teach you and drill you on how to learn how to counter this move that this player constantly uses, like on your matchup. It's great. I wish more fighting games had that.
Yeah, it's a great fighting game from what I've seen and from what I've played myself. Do you know if it's still got an active player base on the consoles and on PC?
I don't know about PC. I would definitely say PS4. The only thing is that yes, it is not the most popular fighting game. You will find players, and you're gonna make your own custom lobbies with friends, but don't expect numbers like Dragon Ball FighterZ or Street Fighter. It might be close to Street Fighter 5. I think Street Fighter 5 has slightly more, but it'll still have a devoted player base. But if you're going in now, like most games, you're gonna be going in a little bit late, so it'll be a smaller, more concentrated player base. So you'll find matches for sure. But I actually came into Revelator 1 kind of late too, and I could still find matches.
Yeah.
But it will be just a little bit tougher if you go online. Fair warning. You might get bodied, but you got to have that persistence. You got to make sure you learn and keep going at it.
Yeah.
But you will find matches.
All right, great pick. So I guess we're gonna head to my number 7 next. And my number 7 is a game that I know Marcus has played. I don't know how much, but I think he's put in at least a dozen hours. And that's Fire Emblem Warriors.
Yes.
Fire Emblem Warriors is actually my first Dynasty Warriors game. At least, the first one that I actually sat down and put in more than 10 minutes. I don't know. It really surprised me. Like, I was expecting it to be this very, very simple button masher, and in a way it is. but it's also got these systems that obviously carry over from the strategy Fire Emblem games, the regular series. Like you can choose where to send your different units. You can pair them up, like in the Fates games and in Awakening. It has the weapon triangle that is of some relevance. It has Awakening mode. And there is some strategy involved, more than I actually thought. I think the presentation is great. I think it's great that it has this these two different modes, performance mode and quality mode, if you want to call it that, where you can choose to either play it at 60 FPS, 720p, or 1080p, 30 FPS. I like the characters that it has, although the roster could be a bit more varied, especially some older Fire Emblem games are underrepresented, although that's something that could change with the sequel if there's ever going to be one. Yeah, I mean, it's your average Dynasty Warrior game, I would say, with a Fire Emblem skin and a couple of nice Fire Emblem mechanics that it takes over from these other games, from the regular series. I liked it. It was a big surprise for me. I actually completed the story. I did some of the post-game, and I do kind of want to go back to it and unlock the final 2 characters, I think, that I haven't unlocked yet, the optional ones.
Yeah, for me, it's a little weird. It's not on my list, I will say that.
Okay.
But I do enjoy it. I haven't been able to play it as more games have come out recently, but it's technically not my first time playing a Warriors game, but I say that very loosely because I only tried out a few minutes of Hyrule Warriors, which that's the one that people compare a lot because it's it's the whole Nintendo partnership, and design, I guess from people have said, is a little different between some Warriors games, and that one's pretty in line with that. But that was only a few minutes of Hyrule Warriors. I didn't really get much out of it. I will say the fact that Fire Emblem Warriors is on the Switch makes it a more attractive. It's more attractive in the sense of like if I have like an hour to kill or something, like like on the daily commute or whatever, I can just do like a map in that session, and it'll be good to just crank one out if you have any free time. Whereas with other Warriors games, like you have to make a commitment to like play it on your console, or you're probably not going to consider it nearly as much unless you're a diehard fan of it. Presentation is great. The roster is what bums me out a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. If you like those characters, you do, and if you don't, then it would have just been nice to have more variety in between like the whole series, because that's the thing that kind of kills me is that Hyrule Warriors, despite me not playing it too much, I definitely think it has a better roster because it feels like a celebration of the entire franchise, even like to the obscure stuff like, oh my god, I never thought I'd see any Link's Awakening representation at all, and I almost cried just seeing anything represented in that game, because that's like my favorite Zelda game of all time. It's near and dear to my heart, and seeing any representation just made me very happy. And I wish Fire Emblem Warriors had a moment like that, but it didn't for me. But it is so great, like you said, the strategy. That's the one thing that people liked about Hyrule Warriors as well, and it's no different here. Whatever franchise they're taking and turning it into a Warriors format, they really consider the options directly from the games. So there's way more strategy with the weapon triangle and the mages and Pegasus Knights. It's all there. It's all things to consider. Arrow users as well. But it's really cool. They even like put in the dragon veins from Fates and like all these like environmental hazards. It feels like you're almost playing a different interpretation of like what a Fire Emblem like map like quest would be, where like you were actually doing the fighting and actually like moving troops around, and it's cool. It feels like really faithful to what the series is about. So it's really great. The remixes for some of the soundtrack, or rather the original soundtracks from the games, is really well done too. Just has that nice mood, like makes you like want to keep going. Really nice like rock arrangements of some of those as well. It's a good game. It's not on my list, but definitely if I had some free time, I might play it again.
Definitely, yeah. So we're slowly but surely moving in on the top 5. But first, let's go through our rounds of number 6s first. Shin, what's your number 6 pick for Game of the Year?
This is another tough one because I'm choosing between 2 games.
Okay.
If I were to say this is purely my opinion, and I can disagree completely.
Yeah.
Mario Odyssey.
I won't fight you on that, man.
No, it's between 2 games, dude. You'll know why.
Okay.
With the next
Okay.
pick. Mario Odyssey, the platforming is pretty much perfect in that game, honestly. I don't know, Marcos, if you agree with me or not. It's just the
100%
overall
that shit
charm,
real quick, buddy. I love it.
the overall
But it's also on my
charm and
list.
direction, the art direction, everything about it. I think Nintendo just nailed it with that game. Like, I haven't had fun with a Mario game in such a long time, and playing Mario Odyssey, just wow.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air. If anything, regardless of what people will think of Zelda and Odyssey coming out last year, you can't deny that it is a step in the right direction for Nintendo, because I feel like some of those franchises have gotten just a little bit stale. And it's good to see ambition again. It's good to see them either go into open world or just get weird with a Mario game again. Because the reason that people like, if I'm going slightly off tangent, the reason people like Mario Sunshine so much is because of how weird and different it was. People consider it the black sheep, but that one has a huge fan base, and people sometimes will regard it as their favorite Mario game still. And that's also because it was doing so many unique things that you can't help but respect it, because it's at least trying all this new stuff. And honestly, it has these like new worlds and like these different, for some jarring art styles. But for me, like, even knowing about what the developers have stated, they actually want it to feel like it doesn't fit, because they want to give it that foreign feel. They want you to feel like you're in a place that you're not supposed to belong, which I think is brilliant, because I think it really helps to make every world feel like its own unique area and its own little playground. And it's all great, very, like, you know, tackling different art styles and stuff. There is one disappointment, and then I figure it's good, you know, because I think you'll agree. The one disappointment, slight spoilers for everyone else, is the Ruined Kingdom is a little bit of a disappointment. A lot of people have said it. It has this amazing art style. Dude, I got hype. I got so hyped, like, when my sister was there and like watching me play. I freaked out, thinking like, "Oh my god, are they really doing this?" And
honestly, I thought of Dark Souls when I saw that.
Man, dude, same. You know what? It's like,
and
we're
even
not even
the
like.
boss, I'm like, what the heck am I seeing?
It's
Why
so
didn't they
good.
expand
Like, I would
this?
have loved to see an entire like kingdom to explore of that, but it was only one of the boss arena stages, so that was a little bit of a bummer. That was an art style that clashed so hard that it made it great. But no, that was probably the only little letdown. But no, the game is great. I have more to say, but it is on my list. A little higher up, but no, I definitely feel you there. Controls are tight. It feels great.
The only problem about the game, I think it's in terms of the moons, how they shape them up seems a bit more tedious compared to the other games. I don't know if I'm right about that or not completely. But some of them feel like rehashes more so between worlds. But they've done that before. That's the thing. They've done that before. I'm not saying
they've
this
done it
is
before,
the first time.
Yeah, no. I would say that they could have cut back on some of the moons. Maybe like a handful here and there, because some of them are. I don't mind the ones that are like
moons.
platform.
Yeah,
the ones that are like platform challenges and like their own, like, you know, these little like hiding spots where you're like exploring the level. Those are fine.
Yeah.
The ones that I think are padding are the ones that are just like, change your costume to get a moon, and it's like, oh, okay, I didn't really do anything for that, but I guess you'll give it to me. Which, I mean, I guess you have to like get enough of the purple coins, and that's like kind of their weird way of rewarding you for getting those costumes, I guess, when I think about it. But you probably could have, you know, done without that. They could have cut back a little bit on the moons, because some of them do feel like padding. The only thing that saves it slightly, though, I will say, compared to let's say Breath of the Wild, where some of those Korok missions are pretty much the same, just spread throughout. The thing that saves Odyssey a little bit more, I would say, is the fact that it is a different world or stage, like you said, which makes at least getting the moon itself slightly different. Or there might be different obstacles or things that could make the experience different.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, there are definitely some things that could have cut back on. And honestly, you don't really need to. I don't know. You don't need to get all of them to experience the full game, which is kind of nice. Some of them are actually pretty much optional unless you want to go for like 100%, honestly. But yeah, no, definitely a really good game. It's just not perfect. Nothing is, but
It's game of the year material, man. But still.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the great games that came out in 2017. I mean, number 6 spot is definitely not a bad one to be in. And yeah, I personally don't have a lot of input. Like I said, I haven't played it yet. I definitely want to, though, at some point. Okay.
Go for it, man.
Marcus, what's your number 6?
Okay, so my number 6 is I don't know if it's gonna be on any of your lists. Shannon, it might be on yours, but I don't know. My number 6 is Cuphead, which came out in September. Like, I'm trying to find what to say that everyone else hasn't said already. Like, you just look at the game, the art style's phenomenal. I think the soundtrack doesn't get as much praise as it deserves because it has very nice, like, big bands, orchestrated music that just, oh my god, like, I can't stop listening to that soundtrack. I will say one slight thing too. 2017 had a lot of great games, but it also had a lot of great video game soundtracks. As someone who really loves this medium and loves what they can really do with these soundtracks, 2017 was a fantastic year for it. But Cuphead is one of my fonder memories of 2017 because I actually only played it co-op at my friend Joe's house. He had the game, so I played it with him. I was Mugman and he was Cuphead. But we both did it. He didn't really like carry me throughout the game. He pretty much like he whiffed his supers, and if I died, he would just die immediately afterwards. So it wasn't ever like any freebie for me. I pretty much played the raw experience. But it is true what people have said. It is difficult, but it's also very rewarding. The fact that there's like a progress meter lets you know how close you got. It's really fun to just experiment and try to get a hang of these bosses because some of them, multiple phases, definitely a very fair challenge, I would say, because visually it's either obvious or there's times where you can like revive yourself, or even then it's like you can just buy stuff from the item shop that will help you either take more, like I think you take, like there's one that, for example, would give you one more heart of damage to take, but you would also do less damage in the long run. Or you can do like a dash that would like make you invisible. There's all kinds of ways to customize how you play the game. There's no right or wrong way, but you can definitely mitigate that. There's also an easy mode if you want that as well. So it's a challenge, but I say it's a fair challenge compared to other games where it feels like it's cheap difficulty. With time, you will learn these patterns and they will give you hints and visual tells before they do things. So it's a great game. Everything else people have said, like, you know how good it is. I would say it's the best indie game last year by far, but that's just like my opinion, man.
Shin, have you played Cuphead at all?
Yes, but it's not in my top 10.
Oh, okay. Did you like it though?
Yes, sir.
That could be top 9. You know what? Top 9. There you go.
Okay. Retroactively, number 9 for Shin is Cuphead. I didn't play it, but people do seem to love it. So, top 5. Wait, no. We still need to talk about my top 6, don't we? My number 6 pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a game that I would guess is on at least one of your guys' list, probably on both of your guys' lists. This is the only other game that, other than, which one was it? Zelda Breath of the Wild, that I haven't beaten on my list. And that is Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yes.
My number 6 pick. I put in probably close to 40 hours. I still got a long way to go, probably. I don't know where to start with this one. It's a big game.
Oh yeah.
God.
Why do I like it so much? Well, it's got pretty much everything that you can ask for from a great JRPG. It's got nice combat. It's got really, really good music. It's got really cool enemies, both how they, interact with you in fights and how they look, how they're designed visually. The world is fantastic in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I do like the story where it's going so far. But what do you guys think? You've played it too, haven't you?
You can say that. Yeah, I haven't been it yet either. I definitely want to. Once I get Monster Hunter World and Dragon Ball Fighters out of my system,
Yeah.
I'm going straight back to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's just a matter of not having enough time or other things getting in the way. But no, as someone who's been a fan of the Xenoblade series for a while now, I was actually one of the people who actually did sign that petition for Operation Rainfall to get Xenoblade Chronicles in the West. I was there when it happened, so it was great to see all that support from people who really wanted that game. And of course, the rest is history after that, because that game is, I would say, my favorite Wii game. Which I know there's a lot of competition with that, but Xenoblade Chronicles, for my money, is the best. Chronicles X gets a bad rap. I can understand why. There's some changes it made, and it's not as story focused. But for me, it's still also one of my favorite Wii U games, because it's still just all these games. Like, the scope of the world is already impressive enough as it is, but then seeing the ecology, seeing the scope of it all, the music is incredible in each of them. I don't care if you don't like Hiroyuki Sawano's soundtrack in X. I will fight for that soundtrack any day of the week.
That soundtrack's really fucking amazing. I agree with Marcos. I still listen to it to this day.
For real. But hope to God for a Switch port. I would support that. But yeah, it's a great game. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I love the blade designs. Some of them are a little mixed, but it's great to see, like, it's actually interesting how they've gotten like different artists for some of the blade designs. So some of them look really cool, and some of them you might not jive with, but that's kind of part of the fun. The soundtrack for me, that was really shaping up to be one of my favorites, though that's hard in a long-running series that has consistently been great for me. This was my most anticipated game of last year, I would say, because nothing gets me more excited than a new Xenoblade game, and this thing has been delivering, and then some. It's great. And the combat is what I know and love. I know some people getting into it might find it a bit strange, but it's what the series has been.
You mentioned the blades. How do you feel about the blade system? The RNG element that's involved with it, and
yeah, that's definitely a big point of contention. I would say it's not a deal breaker for me, only because while I understand it's a bit of a problem for people who want to get all the blades, and of course, if you're trying to 100%, it is going to get a little hard getting those last few rare blades that you want.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just playing the game casually and like not really trying to grind for the blade cores too much. I might just like salvage if I want to play it but not stream it or make any progress, because any progress I make, I have to stream. At least that's my self-imposed rule. But yeah, I don't really find it a problem, because it's not like the game roadblocks you if you don't have a certain blade. Honestly, the game's been pretty good about that.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go off the beaten path for maybe like an optional quest, or like you need some field skills, then maybe you'll have some issues and you're like, you just come back to it later. But I don't think it's not like game breaking, you know what I mean? Like, I find it's ultimately harmless, but I understand how it can be frustrating. Mm-hmm. I don't really have a problem with it, because as I keep playing, if I just have 3 or 4 good rare blades I really like, and keep making the most out of them, it's like that's really all you need. You're never gonna need all these blades to get through the game. It's not like they're telling you that you have to stop everything and get more blades or something, like some sort of free-to-play game.
Yeah.
I understand that the randomness is a factor, but I think ultimately it isn't as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be.
Yeah, at least it gives the game some spice, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
having different blades to deal with, having different team compositions is actually nice.
Yeah,
I like the variety in Xenoblade 2 a lot.
Yeah,
but the gotcha
the weapon designs are really cool, by the way.
What's up?
Some inventive ones. Oh no, I was just saying that some of the weapon designs as well, like along with the blades, are really inventive. Shout outs to Blitzball. But no, that's all really great too.
In terms of farming for cores and all that, it gets better later on. I'll say that. Like, you'll be able to get all the blades very easily. I'm almost like I pretty much have more than half of the blades on Xenoblade 2 right now. And I feel like I'm gonna get all of them by endgame, in a way. But I don't know.
None of us have beaten it yet, is that right?
That's pretty much.
Yeah.
It.
But it's still up there.
Yeah, no, the one thing I will say though is if you're hungry for more Switch games and you have that console, if you're into JRPGs, look up some footage. It might not be for you because it's definitely the best way I can sell you on a Xenoblade game is basically in one sentence: a single player MMO. It has the scope of it. It doesn't feel lonely because there's so much life to the worlds, so you don't feel like you're just like deserted in the middle of nowhere. There's tons of side quests to do, but really, I think a lot of people, if it's your first time, this is a fine place to go. Don't let the 2 in the title intimidate you. It's very much self-contained, so you'll definitely you'll get a bang for your buck. If you really like the game, this game will last you tons of hours, and there's nothing but quests and things to do, and even just exploring takes you a good few hours if you enter in a new area. And that is one thing I will also say, although I do have more to say, of course, when I actually get to it, because of course it is on my list. One really nice thing that it does as well is that every chapter introduces a new world or a new setting, so it never feels tiring. It feels like you're always exploring something new, and it always feels like you're getting to the next best thing. You get impressed with one world in like chapter 1 or 2, and you ain't seen nothing yet. You keep going, and you're rewarded for your progress with either new things to figure out or the plots unfurling, like, you know, as you keep going. It's all great. It's always just that nice little carrot at the end of a stick for you, where it's just like, by the time you finish that chapter, you know it's going to be new stuff all over again, and it's really great.
Yeah, you were streaming it the other day. I was watching, and I remember you saying this. Man, every new area I get to is my new favorite area.
Pretty much. Like, it's so hard because you keep thinking it's like, oh, I found my favorite. It's like, oh god, wait, no, this looks really cool too. Yeah. It's hard, man. But definitely.
Okay, so that's my number 6 pick, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So let's get into the top 5. Shin, what's your number 5?
Sonic Mania.
Oh.
Dude, holy shit. That is also my 5.
Nice.
That's great.
Everything about Sonic Mania, I'm sorry, as someone who loves the old school Sonics, they freaking nailed it so hard with Sonic Mania. I don't know.
Good lord.
Everything about the physics, everything about the animations, everything about the speed, especially the balance between speed and, you know, all the obstacles you deal with. Everything seems so balanced, and there was so much love put into the game. The only thing, forgot what it was called. Those stages from Sonic 3. What was it called again?
Which one? Lava Reef? Hydrocity?
No, it was those extra stages.
Oh, the bonus stages. Blue spheres. Yeah.
Blue spheres. There you go. That was fun, but way too much.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. No, definitely.
I actually got all gold medals for that too. And I gotta say, it was fun doing blue spheres again from Sonic 3, but I will not miss them.
Pretty much, yeah. Which is, you know, also worse compared to like the actual new special stages, which are really fun. And if anything, it's the opposite. I would have wanted more special stages than just the 7, because that's really fun.
But the stages where you get the emeralds from, they're done perfectly. I got no complaints about that at all.
It's some of the best special stages in classic Sonic, I would say.
Especially playing Sonic CD too. Gosh darn it, that made me just go, I don't know, Doki Doki in my heart, man. Anyway, and the main game itself, perfect. Nope, the soundtrack's perfect, levels are perfect, level design is perfect, physics perfect. Especially playing the other characters at the same time, adding replayability, getting all the emeralds, adding more to the content too. I won't spoil for other people, but GG.
Yeah.
Especially the debug mode.
But you go.
All the extras you can get. from doing Blue Spheres.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty nice. And hearing the whole
Oh,
soundtrack as
man.
well.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I'll just add on to it is that, yeah, for those who aren't in the know, Sonic Mania is just, it's a game by fans, for fans, is the easiest way to put it. You know, like, I don't think I need to tell you guys about the history with Sonic, where he's been the butt of a joke for a while now. He's not, you know, like everyone says it, he's kind of fallen from what he used to be. And some games I still think are really good, like Colors and Generations, and there's a few good games here and there, but the consistency has kind of waned. This is a game that's, we keep saying it, and that's another thing that needs to be praised in 2017 as well, is that a lot of these games really are just return to forms, but there are some that have needed them for a while now, and it's great to see some of these franchises coming back in a great way, in a very strong way. But yeah, Sonic Mania it's just great. I know some of the complaints is that people would have preferred more new stages. Of course, I'm not going to spoil anything else here, but at the same time, I will say that these guys have done it in a very tasteful way. The stage one is basically the level design of the original game as you know and love, if it's a returning stage. But then Act 2 does something completely different that you will never see in any other Sonic game. Like, you won't see a rendition. Like, it is pretty much like an Act 3 for some of these games that you never saw before, and it introduces either new mechanics and it teaches them so well. The design in that game is brilliant. It's I never felt like I got lost in level design, where I know the CD, despite it being a really good game, some people, like, you know, do say that they get kind of lost in, like, you know, almost the open-ended design.
The level design was all over the place.
But Mania
with that
guides your hand really well, very naturally. It's also nice because it doesn't have nearly as many cheap deaths. It does have some because of collision, but a good example is if you gosh, I'm kind of speaking to a minority here, but for anybody who's played the Sonic Advance trilogy on Game Boy Advance, that's what people considered like the Sonic 4 at the time, or as close as we were going to get. And those games are great, don't get me wrong, but as you keep playing them, they really like bottomless pits, to the point where it gets a little obnoxious. Final levels just kind of feel unfair, you know. And Sonic Mania, it was a breeze, you know. Like, me and Shin, we played it for about like the first 3 days or first 4 days after it came out, and it's a short game, yes, but every like classic Sonic game is. But the joy of it was either playing as different characters or finding the best routes for bonus stages. And even then, those first few hours were just a complete joy to play. I felt like I was 5 years old again, you know? It's such a great throwback. It's such a love letter, but it's a tastefully done love letter. There's nothing here that feels cheap, or it feels like it was soulless. It feels like it was all done from very passionate fans. It's the physics that should have been there. Whenever they try to bring back classic Sonic in modern games, it just doesn't really work or doesn't get quite right. This is, like, it's not even a matter of it's as close to classic Sonic as you're gonna get. No, this is the Sonic 4. Don't think about the other one that didn't exist. This is a real Sonic 4.
I was about to say
this is
what
perfect physics. The music is phenomenal. Like, you can't go wrong with this. It's only $20. If you're a fan of retro gaming or a classic Sonic game, you really can't go wrong with this. And again, I have to stress the soundtrack. Oh my lord, that soundtrack is holy
it's just
shit!
Godlike.
It's
godlike.
Great. It's honestly great. But yeah, no, it's a joy to play. One thing in particular made me very happy, but I won't spoil it. But there was a really cool reference that you guys know. But it was really cool to see. There's some really nice references to older games that old school fans will get, and some might not, but they still work really well.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Yeah, I know you Sonic fans have been hurting for the longest time, so I'm glad you finally got what you wanted for all these years.
Pretty much. Yeah, for people who sorry, I was just gonna say, for people who, like, you know, kind of don't get why it is a big deal, it's just that, yeah, it's like you said, people People have wanted a classic game for a long time now after seeing the kind of mixed like ideas that the actual Sonic team has. People just want what worked, and we finally get it. And it's just, like, let people have their day, basically, because it's been a long time coming.
So yeah, Sonic Mania was also your top 5, right, Marcus?
Yeah, that was actually my 5 as well.
So then I guess we can jump straight to mine, which we've mentioned already, so we don't need to get into too much detail. It's Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. That's my number 5. Mm-hmm. Like we've said, great remake, one of the best Fire Emblem games, one of the best modern Fire Emblem games, if only the maps were a little bit better. Yeah, I don't think we need to add too much more. It's just a great strategy RPG. Okay, so why don't we mix it up a little bit and start our rounds of number 4 with Marcus? What's your number 4 pick?
Okay. So my number 4 is actually Super Mario Odyssey, which based on what I said before, like, some people might have thought that it'd be a little higher based on what I said on stream, but no, this is it's a really great game. There are some others, and honestly, with this being number 4, you guys can probably guess the rest of them, but
maybe.
Odyssey is it's a great, I keep saying it, but it's a great return to form. People who loved 64 and loved Sunshine and even the Galaxy games, it's like we felt like we weren't really catered to after Galaxy, I would say, because then afterwards Nintendo was kind of in this weird I don't know what you'd call it. It's I guess you call it like a weird like rut or like this weird cycle where they really seem to cater to the 2D fans, like double down, I would say, because the new Super Mario Bros. Franchise, it's already been run through the dirt. Like anything that would have been there for appeal is already long gone when they had 4 iterations of that. But then they tried doing Mario 3D Land and 3D World, and it was like this weird hybrid of 3D gameplay, but with like 2D fundamentals. So it was weird. They were fine, but it kind of felt like I just wanted 64 the whole time when I was playing those games. It's like I just wanted the control of that. I wanted the freedom. I wanted my multiple jumps. I wanted to mix and match what I do to get to that objective and just have fun with it. And Odyssey is a real return to form of that, especially most notably with Cappy as well, extending your moveset. It is the best feeling Mario game I've played, and some people would argue Sunshine or 64, but for my money I would say Odyssey, because it brought back what I wanted for years, and it also made it more fun to just experiment. There's tons of like really cool sequence breaking mechanics or like maneuvers you can do. It's all very fun. The game gives you so much freedom, and it's what I've wanted for a while now. The soundtrack is great, but the one last thing I will say on it, since we talked about it before, is that more than anything, this is what I wanted from Breath of the Wild, but I didn't really get it personally. I just wanted moments that I'll remember. I just wanted things that will be etched into my memory. Whenever you play a good game, there's things that you'll remember fondly, as most games would give you. Odyssey for me has a lot of those. Whether it's, of course, the New Donk City like Festival, where it's a celebration of like new and old, and it's all done really well. Presentation's like great throughout that game, or a few other things that I would rather not spoil. But it just has several moments for me where I just was either like very impressed with it, or honestly, I was almost kind of getting teary-eyed at some of the moments, because it's just weird to see, like, after all these games that kind of felt a bit stale and like going through the motions in the last few years, it was good to see them finally go back to something that feels like they really care and they really put their heart and soul into it. And that's also partly because I believe in an interview Miyamoto stated that Odyssey was mainly done by younger staff, which is very impressive because it feels just as good as if like any old veterans would have made it. And that's a really good sign, because it means that that series is in good hands. But more than anything, it definitely felt like it had some new blood in it. It felt like it had some new ideas, and it really felt charming in its own way compared to other Mario games that, might not have had the charm, or they had a different brand of it. So I would definitely say it's a great game. It's a very memorable game for me. And even if it does have some issues for some people, the moments that it gave me are more than enough to make up for that.
Yeah, sweet. You guys are really making me excited to finally play the game. Um, Number four. I'm gonna go ahead with my number four first, and it's another remake, and it's another 3DS game. As you guys can probably guess, that it's Metroid: Samus Returns. Um, so I've never actually played the original Metroid 2 for the Game Boy, and I didn't play AM2R either, the fan remake that came out a couple months earlier before the official remake. But Metroid Samus Returns is up there with the best 2D Metroids, definitely. It did so many little things to improve the formula, in my opinion. Like, just quality of life improvements. Like, for example, in older Metroid games, you would enter certain rooms and then you'd notice, oh, this is a lava room. There's this intense heat. I'm taking damage. I don't have the correct suit yet. So I gotta head out. Well, in Samus Returns, you actually see that you're about to enter one of these heat rooms before you actually enter. There's this hot air coming through the door, for example. Nice little quality of life improvement. Another thing that I really like is that save stations are no longer in separate rooms, so you don't miss them as often, because a couple of times in like Zero Mission and Fusion, for example, I would run into a boss fight because I checked out this path first, let's say the left path or whatever, and then I died, and then once I respawned, I took the other path and noticed, oh well, there was a save station right there. Could have saved me like 5 minutes of gameplay, 10 minutes of gameplay. So that's another nice quality of life improvement. The fact that save stations are no longer separate rooms, they're right there. It's a great looking game, one of the best looking 3DS games, I would say. It's got a really nice atmospheric soundtrack, and as opposed to Zelda, I think with Metroid it really fits, and it's always been sort of that type of soundtrack, atmospheric, and it's a lot of fun to play. Some people take issue with the counter mechanic, like it has enemies that sometimes flash up and then they charge towards you, and you have to time this button press to execute this counter move. And it's a little overpowered, some people would argue, especially early game. You're very, very much incentivized to use that all the time. So the fights feel a bit repetitive, because every time you encounter an enemy, you just stand there, wait for them to attack, do your counter move, and then blow them to bits. But what I like is that as you grow more and more powerful, and this is true for older Metroid games as well, you can ignore the lower level enemies, or I mean earlier enemies that you've already seen a dozen times. You can ignore them more and more as you grow more powerful. Samus Returns also has this electricity armor that absorbs damage, so you can just run through certain enemies when you go back and re-explore some of the earlier areas. It's got a really nice gameplay flow to it. It looks great visually. It's got a great atmosphere. I think its biggest, I would say, weakness is that the bosses are too repetitive. There are just a bit too many Metroids that play too similarly, but it does have some other boss fights as well, and they are really well designed. But I really like the game. It's my number 4 pick. Have you guys played it at all? I think you have played it, Marcus, right?
Yeah, I've played it. I haven't gotten to beat it, but I believe I got halfway.
Okay.
I do know a little bit about the original Metroid 2 and some of the issues that it had, and this is definitely a really good remake. Like you said, some of the bosses and the way that you still have to track down all those Metroids. For some, can be a little bit tedious, but I didn't really find it too much of an issue. But it does feel a little tedious, I will admit. I'm not saying it's not flawed either, but definitely the quality of life improvements are what I like the most about it. The soundtrack is great. It's definitely some of the old tunes that you know and love. Of course, in a day and age where we haven't had a good Metroid game in, gosh, what has it been? 7 years? No, honestly, It'd be about 10 years if you don't consider Other M a good game, because that was in 2010.
Yeah, since Prime 3,
So
pretty
it's
much.
been more. It's been almost a decade, you know?
Yeah.
It's been rough. So it's great to see a remake that, while it's not going to be mind-blowing, it's not going to change your perception of what a Metroid game is, or, you know, whatever you think it is. It's a solid remake. It's great. Very fun. I like the abilities that they give you over time. As someone who respects the Metroid franchise but couldn't really get into them growing up, I really got some good use out of the scan ability, or like the scan pulse, because basically what that does, for those who don't know, you get it early in the game, so this isn't really any major spoilers. It basically lets you scan an area of effect around the room that you're in, and it'll let you know if there are any hidden paths or hidden blocks that you can shoot down, because that is one thing that I feel like you didn't really need. Like, I know some people like how cryptic it is back in the day to find this stuff, but it always felt kind of unintuitive to have to shoot like through walls and like rooms and like hope there's something there. So I feel like the scan ability kind of streamlines it a bit, and it's like, you know, if you do want to explore, you're incentivized to do so. Whereas before, I felt like I was constantly missing stuff just because I didn't shoot like through any room that I went to, you know? So that was really cool. And the counter early on, yeah, it's a little OP, but at the same time, there's different methods where you can cheese fights as well, or like you said, just ignore lower enemies altogether with some of the jumping abilities or stuff that you get later on, as most Metroid games will give you.
Yeah. Yeah, the scan is actually another great example of just these little quality of life improvements that make the formula even better than it's been all these years. Because previously it was just, you know, okay, either I'm gonna start shooting every wall, or I'll just accept the fact that I'm gonna miss stuff.
Yeah.
But now it's a lot better. Okay, Shin, what's your number 4 for Game of the Year 2017?
Xenoblade 2.
Xenoblade 2. Oh yeah, okay. We've
I think we discussed a lot about it, but surprisingly, I actually like the game a lot. Like, I didn't give X too much of a chance, actually. Yeah. But Xenoblade 2 I gave one real chance, and I'm actually enjoying it. Of course, Xenoblade 2 also has faults, but for some reason, the way it's shaped up in the story, together with, I guess, the RPG aspects of Xenoblade 2, and that's with X. The story wasn't that great in X, per se.
Yeah.
From what I've experienced, but 2, on the other hand, I actually enjoyed it a lot more in terms of story.
Yeah, no, and that's fair.
I can't judge it too much yet, because I still have to figure some things out. More so, of course, there's the elemental orbs. There's a lot of blades that you can mix and match. And I like the fact that Xenoblade 2, even though it has a gacha system with the blades, once you get those blades, you have a lot of gameplay elements that you can do within the battle system itself. Being a tank, of course, being DPS, being a healer and all that, but each tank, DPS, and healer are all different in their own way, especially with their affinity trees. Some can be evade tanks, some can just take the hits while blocking. There's also healers that actually heal by getting hit, more so.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You gain back all the HP you just got. You gain back the HP that you just got damage from. I'm like, what?
I don't have any of those blades yet. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm using one of those blades.
Yeah.
GG.
And so far I'm still researching Xenoblade 2 itself. Even though I haven't finished it, it's still my top 4 spot.
Nice.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, how much story does this game have? How much is there? And how much depth is it gonna go into during endgame? I'm like, what the fuck am I playing?
It's a massive game for sure.
It's massive, and I love how massive it is. Of course, that could be a turnoff for other people. It's not a turnoff for me, the way it's built.
Interestingly, I think we haven't mentioned one thing yet, and I don't know if we should discuss it even a little bit, which is the voice acting in the game.
Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna get to it when I got to my list, but yeah. Shen, you go first.
okay. I gave the voice acting a college try. The English voice acting. I gave it a college try. After I heard Rex's voice in English when it came to emotional moments, it became cringe-worthy material that made me laugh like crazy, but cringe so much to how much emotion he has in that game. I can't reproduce his scream.
Yeah.
It's different. I'm not sure what the voice actor was going with the way he was screaming during those moments, but honestly, Rex's main... I don't know, Rex's voice actor just made me cringe to the point that I switched to Japanese voice.
Mm.
I don't know.
That's fair.
That made me switch. And there were like, don't get me wrong, there are other good voice actors. I don't mind Pyra as much.
She's good, yeah.
Shoot. I don't mind Mithra as much either.
I definitely don't mind her, Kappa.
Okay.
But yeah.
Mini Tsundere, but
I
don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
thinking here. What was that other guy's voice? I forgot what that race of like puffballs was called. I'm sorry.
Nopon? Tora.
Nopon. He wasn't as bad either.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Honestly, the rest of the cast wasn't too bad. It's just Rex that literally made me switch. Just since I always see him all the time. I just
that's
don't
fair.
know what was
a lot
wrong
of
with the
people have
voice
that
direction
complaint.
there.
It's a bit of a shame. Again, as someone who's only like in the USA, I don't know UK voice actors too much. I don't know if they have like a good repertoire or not. It is a little baffling the way that they did it. I don't know if it was maybe because of trying to get it as close to an international release as they could, so they kind of had to rush things a bit. But whoever was the voice director, they did good with everyone else, but when it came to Rex, from what I've been hearing, it's his first like voice acting role in a video game, like period. So already that's a massive red flag. It's just weird to have this like series just be their debut, because you would think that if you're gonna debut in voice acting, you should probably get a more short game, not really a massive JRPG that's going to last you hours and have tons of dialogue.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just a thought, you probably shouldn't have done that as your first try. And I'm not saying that he's all bad. Like Shin said, it's mainly the emotional moments that it just under delivers. Normal voice is fine, it's like you can't really, it's not really distracting in normal conversations, because it's like what really would be, unless he's something like extremely scratchy or something, I don't know. But the rest of the cast is fine. I've listened to both Japanese and English. I still stuck with English mainly because I don't mind the rest of the cast, so that's enough to make up for it. But I know Rex is a huge point of contention, and it's a shame that of all the characters that could have had a bad voice or an underdeveloped voice, it is a shame that it's the main character of all things. Pyra, like Nia and Tora and all them, like they're fine. Honestly, they're all great. They're just doing their different portrayal of the character, and that's fine. I don't hate voices because they're different, but when you don't deliver, you don't deliver. That's a fact. You can't defend that. But the rest of the English voice cast is fine, but I definitely don't blame anybody for switching to Japanese, because for a major role like that, it's disappointing. No ifs and or buts about it. It could have been done better, and it should have been done better, because you can't even use the UK voices as an excuse. Because in the original Xenoblade Chronicles 1, without spoiling too much, I will say this: the voice actor for Shulk, and I do apologize, I don't remember the name right now, when he had to emote, oh my lord, I felt it.
Yeah.
He screamed, he got genuinely pissed off. Like, it was great. Honestly, a really great voice actor. Nothing sucked me in more with those dramatic moments than his voice acting. So it's a shame to see like going from those UK voices that were honestly great and the little Mimi, if that's a word, from the original Xenoblade Chronicles to this, and it's just like, man, Rex is just, he could have been done better.
Yeah, sure.
There's one more thing I want to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Marcos. Don't forget me.
Dude, I can't believe they patched that out. Do you know about that?
Don't forget me. Yeah, they
I'm
did.
so mad. I'm so.
I actually wanted that still in the game.
Oh god.
I can't believe they patched that out. I'm like, okay, look, for those who don't understand what we're talking about, because I need to elaborate, because people who buy this game now will never understand this.
Never patch the game, guys. Never patch the game.
Let's break down this meme. So there's basically an enemy in the game that is a human soldier that you fight early on in the game. For some bafflingly amazing choice, I don't know what they were doing. In most games, you'd have different like human voice clips or like different voices for like these generic like soldier enemy units, right? What they did was they just used the same one voice actor for every single enemy unit that will show up in the game for any soldier unit. So constantly you'll see rooms of like 5 dudes, and they're all just constantly screaming, "Think you can take me? Don't forget me,
please! You can take me!"
Oh god!
Maybe record more than just 2 lines.
It's over and over ad nauseum, and it's a very popular meme. What's his name? Chronicles 2 fandom, and it was dumb. It was incredibly dumb.
But it was amazing.
But god damn it, it was ours.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was ours, So in the more recent updates, they just patched it out. So now you just don't hear it, or you don't hear it nearly as frequently. So the dream is dead, or the meme is dead, pretty much. But oh
that
man,
added charm
it was
to
just
Xenoblade for me.
Oh man. Never forget.
I can't forget. I can't forget you. I can't forget you, Xenoblade.
When I continue my playthrough, I'm not gonna patch the game, guys. I'm gonna leave it as it is. I'm gonna disconnect the internet.
Oh man.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say one thing too. That game will get better in time. It is on my list still. Obviously, it's in top 3. But aside from that, which makes that patch horrible, Kappa, they've done some really nice quality of life changes as the updates progress. So we think the game is good now. It's probably going to be better by the time anyone else gets to play it. If you haven't started on it, they're making some nice changes and some nice tweaks to either UI or map, or really nice convenient fast travel now. Just little things that might have been a problem, and they're fixing them here and there. So they're definitely listening. We're also getting a free New Game Plus at some point in February. So they're just adding and adding more to the game. It's going to give you tons of bang for your buck. It'll last you tons of hours if you really get into it. You can't go wrong with buying that game.
Unless you straight up don't like the genre, maybe, but it's a great game. Okay, Marcos, what's your number 3 pick?
Oh boy, here we go. So my number 3 is very obvious if you've been following me whatsoever. It is Puyo Puyo Tetris, which came out on the PS4 and the Switch in April of last year. Oh boy, so I will explain my whole my whole journey with that game. Started on Twitter. I didn't know about that community at all until I found one person, Stool Softener. He's a really great guy. He's, I guess, like one of the faces of the Puyo Puyo community. But he basically, like, I stumbled across his Twitter page when the release was about to happen. And after seeing how nuts that game could get and like how fun competitive looks, I'm still very beginner level, but it pretty much sold me on the game. Seeing this community that's like really passionate about this series that I didn't even know. It's been 13 years since I even got a game in the West. The last one was apparently Puyo Puyo Fever on the GameCube. And I think Game Boy Advance. But yeah, it's been a while for those people to the point where like they've had to do the import life for a series that's very well known in Japan. but it just never really struck big in the West. And basically, this is I guess you could say like a combo where it's basically two puzzle games in one. It is, I believe, only $40 or $30 right now, probably cheaper by now. But it is one of the best games that I've played all year because it just keeps giving and giving. It's a puzzle game. Like, like those can last you as long as they want. I've played tons of hours with my friend Joe locally, and we always just have a good salty session every time. It's great. Online is also great. You have an adventure mode if you want it as well, which is fully voice acted with some very credible voice actors. It has better voice acting than Xenoblade 2, so take that.
Yeah, definitely.
But
yeah.
Yeah, no, like you have people like friggin' Matt Mercer, Kira Buckland, like all these really great voice actors. So it's all just a very Saturday morning cartoon script to it, but it's all very charming, and it's great to see so much effort in a game that really didn't need it. Because for example, I've seen videos of Tetris re-releases for comparison. All they really do is the basic modes and really nothing else. Hardly any soundtrack choices. This game has over 50 tracks you can just pick and choose. There's skins for your Puyos or your Tetraminos. You can pick whatever character you want, which doesn't really affect anything. But the fact that a puzzle game has all these characters to choose from and it's all just so colorful and vibrant and full of personality is just it's nothing but endearing, and it's something that I still play to this day, which for a lot of games, it's I'm done with them. But that series and that community as well just constantly makes me want to go back because it's nothing but good vibes. It's always great to learn. They have a lot of depth to them, which I know people always say oh man, it's just Tetris. How complex can it get? And it's oh my lord, you can take that game as far as you want to go. When you think you've seen everything, go online and tell me how that goes for you. There are some monsters online, but It's great. You can make custom lobbies, ranked lobbies. It's all there, several modes. It's crazy how only for 30 or 40 bucks, if you like that type of game or those two types of games, you have nothing but modes. You can play Tetris versus Puyo. You can have a swap mode that switches between them at 30-second intervals. There's a lot there. For the price, you really can't go wrong. If it looks like it's going to be a fun time, I would say try it. If you even just like Tetris, you can't go wrong. All the modes are there. And if you want to try another one as well, it's it wouldn't be hard to consider it. I will say one last thing though, is I would not recommend the PS4 version. Apparently that's where some of the expert players play, but it has a smaller community. That means that you're probably gonna have a hard time finding online players. So I would definitely suggest the Switch version. It's portable, local play. You can play with tons of friends. It supports up to 4 players on one console, so you can't go wrong with that version, but I would definitely recommend that one over the PS4 version. But of course, my obsession with that game is just... oh man, you will never hear me shut up about it. I love it to death. It's one of my favorite games all year. One of my biggest surprises last year was just finding out about the series that I didn't know about whatsoever. And it's just it's so great to see something with so much charm and personality where it really doesn't need it. But God bless it anyway.
Shin, have you played it at all, Puyo Puyo Tetris?
I've only played the demo.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty much it. I know the appeal of it too, and I know it fully well watching Marcos's streams.
Yeah, I saw some of it too.
It's just that one more mentality.
Technical.
Yeah.
I think it's a great example of what you get when you take a great proven concept and just keep adding to it, and just the levels of presentation in the game are off the charts too, from what I've seen. It looks like a really, really fun game.
Definitely, I can't recommend it enough. If you're looking for any multiplayer games on the Switch, this is so worth its price and then some. Yeah. Honestly.
Okay, so that was Marcus's number 3 pick. I'll quickly mention mine. We've already talked about it. Tales of Berseria is my number 3. I've already talked about it. I do actually kind of prefer it over Xenoblade Chronicles, at least as far as I've played Xenoblade Chronicles up to this point, even though that's a great game. But great characters and really fun gameplay, although it does have its issues, but I did make a review which is on my channel, which you can check out, Tales of Berseria Review. And I pretty much go into everything I think about the game and why it was such a big surprise for me and why it had such a big impact on me. So check that out if you're interested in a more detailed opinion. Shin, what's your number 3 pick?
2017 Monster Hunter Double Cross. I'm
a Monster Hunter. I should have seen it coming. God.
I'm a Monster Hunter nut.
Here. Yeah.
Still. Brave style Monster Hunter Double Cross. Mwah.
That was Japan only, right?
So good. Japan only.
Yeah.
I'm still gonna add it. Oh my gosh.
Bless you, Nintendo, for getting rid of that damn region lock, just saying.
Thank you, Nintendo. Else I would have never been able to play it.
Seriously, I'm so glad they just got rid of that.
But more so, I guess, the game is amazing. It's the same old Monster Hunter. But more so, it does have faults. It's very, very, very long. Too many quests, by the way. There's still a lot of quests to do in that game, which isn't exactly bad, but in terms of pacing, Double Cross doesn't nail it right, just like Monster Hunter World right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Monster Hunter World pacing is miles better than Double Cross. Not gonna lie. Oh, but
you're not doing a great job selling the game right now, Shin.
I'm just being honest.
Okay.
I'm just honest. I love Monster Hunter World a lot more than Double Cross, but in terms of 2017 games, Double Cross is my number 3 spot.
Okay.
Just because I love the overall gameplay, the variety. You guys already know. There's so much that you can do in Monster Hunter, even if you're HR 999, you've done everything, you can always learn something new. Learn new weapons, learn new styles, learn pretty much hunter arts, learn every single monster's patterns, learn how to make a challenge out of yourself in the game. You don't even have to put up a challenge, but you could put up your own challenges in the game or put up your own speedruns. I don't know.
Shoutouts to Naked Hunts, you already know.
Yes, I love doing Naked Hunts in Monster Hunter. I don't think chat knows. In the past, I've done a lot of Naked Hunts.
Without weapon, even? You do need a weapon,
Then
right?
again, you can't go on a hunt without a weapon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's all you get is the weapon, but yeah, no armor, no charm, no, nothing to protect you. Like, I'd almost say, maybe, Shin, would you count eating with that challenge too? Or no?
What, eating? Sure.
Yeah, would you say, no eating as well for a Naked Hunt?
It could be no eating, pretty much. Add that in.
Damn.
You make your own challenges. And you could defeat any monster at the highest level if you really try. At being naked, honestly.
That sounds frustrating, though.
It's frustrating, but in a
the
way,
game
just
never...
like Dark Souls. Just like Dark Souls, if you finish the boss, a really hard boss, with the type of challenge you put on yourself, it feels satisfying in the end, and you have bragging rights, in a way.
Yeah, it's just self-imposed. Thank God the game never makes you do it.
So you don't have to do it, but it's there. So I don't know.
So would you say that Double Cross is your second favorite Monster Hunter?
Ooh. I'd say 3U goes over that.
Okay.
I love the swimming in 3U, and that is something that everybody would probably disagree with. Mostly. I love the swimming in 3U. I love the variety of monsters in 3U, and overall, it's simple. It has the pacing there. Double Cross has too many quests, and too many... Okay, let me rephrase that. Too many gathering quests.
Oh, I see.
Too many
Dude,
gathering
I
quests.
gotta be real.
And
the reason
village
that I couldn't put in as many hours as you is because I want, whenever I thought about doing village quests and getting caught up, oh my god, I just was not, I was never eager to do it. It's a little rough. But it was very fun. Brave mode alone, oh my god, if we could live in a world where brave mode still existed in the world, I'd really have fun with that. But Double Cross is fun. Here's hoping it comes out to the West at some point. if there's any hope.
Yeah, I'd still play it if it comes out. I'm just sad it didn't come out before World, because World by far kind of tops it.
Yeah, like now it might be a downgrade,
so
and it might take a while for it to get to the West, but who knows?
Yeah, but shoot, the one thing about I want to add one more thing for Double Cross. The Deviants are worth fighting, all of them, every single one. They're very unique in itself, and I love Azure Bolt Astalos. It's still my favorite monster in that game. Even though it's the most bullshit monster in the game for other people. I just love the challenge. I love how bullshit he is, and I love his goddamn black hole he does.
Yeah.
But
although for those who don't know, I was just gonna say one other thing. For those who don't know what Double Cross inherently is, it is basically the Ultimates or G version of Monster Hunter Generations, which we did get in the West. But it is basically handled by the I don't know if you call it like the B team, or like, not the core development team, because while they were busy developing Monster Hunter World, which took them about 4 years. I was about to say 4 months. I was gonna say, damn, that's impressive. But basically Generations and Double Cross were more so treated as like spin-offs. So they really did some weird stuff, some really cool stuff. Some changes I didn't like, but some things that were cool. I'm gonna miss playing as a Palico. That was just really fun. Really nice way to not worry about your inventory nearly as much, but still contribute, and you could do some very funny stuff. So it was kind of just like throwing everything in the kitchen sink with those games, where it's like it was very experimental. So I might like some things, but yeah, it's definitely too many gathering quests. That really is a problem. But yeah, if it ever does come to the West, I definitely consider it, because as great as World is, it will not be portable. So if it does come out on the Switch in the West, you can't go wrong with more Monster Hunter wherever you go.
Very much.
Monster Hunter Double Cross. I guess I'm gonna start with my number 2. And I think I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who has that game on his list, and that's Horizon Zero Dawn. We've mentioned it early in the video, but we didn't go into that much detail. Monster Hunter, Horizon Zero Dawn. Actually, there's a reason why I just confused it, because now that I'm getting into Monster Hunter World and getting into Monster Hunter in general, I see a lot of parallels between Horizon and Monster Hunter, because you do fight these massive creatures, giant T-Rexes and giant saber-toothed tigers, and it's not entirely dissimilar to Monster Hunter. You have a lot of different weapons at your disposal, and there are a lot of different strategies as to how you can take down these different monsters. For example, some of them have these explosive tanks on them that you can shoot. You can set up tripwires. You can take control over other monsters and have them duke it out amongst each other. You can tackle those in a variety of different ways, and that's a lot of fun. But I also do love the world a lot in Horizon Zero Dawn. It's very unique. It's this post-apocalyptic setting with sentient machines walking around, machine dinosaurs, but at the same time you have these Stone Age people, these tribes and everything. And the tribes are really interesting too, because they are at different stages of development, and how they interact with one another is really interesting. In a way, it's a very believable and authentic world. It's got great visual variety. It's got great snowy mountains and jungles and deserts. It's a fantastic world, and it kind of has this clutter that Marcus was mentioning way earlier. The Ubisoft style open world clutter, but it's not as bad. It's a bit more. It feels a bit more natural in the game, and it's got a very interesting story or backstory that you uncover slowly, almost System Shock or Bioshock style, with audio recordings that you find throughout the game. So yeah, there's something very interesting that you can discover there story-wise, why the world is the way that it is. It's very interesting. Very emotional game too, especially towards the end, and just on a technical level, one of the best looking games that you'll find currently on any system. And it runs well even on a regular PlayStation 4, which is great. It really has me excited that the next Hideo Kojima game is using a modified version of the same engine that was used for Horizon Zero Dawn. I think it's a great engine. But yeah, you guys have not played it, right?
No.
I've seen some of it.
Yeah.
But that's it.
It was actually when it was revealed at E3 for the first time. It was actually my favorite announcement of that year. I forget if that was 2015 or I don't think it was 16.
I don't know.
Whenever
actually.
it was unveiled, it was really cool. I love that aesthetic, and it really did make me think of Monster Hunter. Like, for me, when I first saw the unveiling, I thought it was like, oh, that's like a freaking sci-fi Monster Hunter. That looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to check it out at some point. Again, it's just too many damn games. It just slipped under my radar, but it's definitely one that I still want to consider at some point.
Great. So, Marcos, I have a feeling I pretty much know what your number 2 is going to be.
Yep. It even has a 2 in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my number 2 is, no surprise, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Now, the only reason I don't put it at number 1, and, Zigoth and Shin, you guys already know my number 1. I've proclaimed it so many times on Twitch. But going back to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the only reason I have not put it at number 1, and I really can't justify yet, is because I haven't beaten it.
Okay.
Maybe it could dethrone the king. When I do beat it and have seen all that there is to it. Who knows? I never outrule that. But Xenoblade Chronicles 2, for what I played, I've put in about 60, 70 hours so far. And yeah, it's still, I'm only on chapter 5 still. But it's great. We've already talked about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But there's also little things that I like about the world. I love how in the series there's always this like sense of danger wherever you go. If you stray too far from the path, like there are monsters that will naturally be stronger, and it feels really organic. And you always got to be cautious on the lookout. But one of the things that really floored me about too when I first saw it were the cutscenes. I know I mentioned that at the end of each chapter it's nice to see a new setting, but before that, as a way to cap off every chapter, there's always a very major plot relevant cutscene, and those things look phenomenally good in motion, especially with the action scenes. They look like some of the best cutscenes in engine I've seen for an RPG like in a while. Like they look really fluid and really cool, just to admire like how they choreographed it, and it all looks really impressive. But aside from that as well, I have to give massive props to the soundtrack. It has some of my favorite tracks in the series so far, and no doubt there will be some that will also be, I consider it could be in the running for my favorite soundtrack in the series, but we'll just have to wait and see. But overall, it's a great game. I love it. I love everything about it so far. As a fan of the series, I knew, I knew I was gonna love it, and part of that might be my bias. I know it has some problems, but I just can't help but love it. It's exactly what I wanted, and I just want to go back to it as early as I can.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so Shin, what's your number 2?
Persona 5.
Good one.
I don't want to spoil it that much for Marcos.
Yeah.
Music.
Do you want me to mute my sound or something? I could let you go in if you want.
You don't have to go into the story.
I'm not going to go into the story too much.
Okay.
Or almost at all. But in terms of how they balanced everything, in terms of RPG mechanics, the day-to-day system, seems smoother than the other Persona games to me. But I guess it's just the one thing that made me like Persona so much is the freaking goddamn music. I'm still listening to Persona 5 music right now. Like beforehand, I was just listening to it. And never am I gonna get tired of Persona music. It's that good. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a different soundtrack this time around, a bit more jazzy, right?
Music. Yeah, it does. It's a bit more jazzy.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my god. I want to gush so much. Okay. I love that game so much.
Bruh.
Like, there's not much faults to that game. Honestly. I can't think too much about faults.
Yeah.
Like, sure, the day-to-day system could be a bit slow for people because you don't go into the action immediately in terms of, dungeons and all that. Like, once you go into a dungeon, it's just a blast. And of course, I won't go into too much mechanics about dungeons either for the game, but a lot of the themes for the dungeons in Persona 5 are... Oh my god. Art direction.
Yeah.
When I rate from 1 to 10 in terms of Persona 5 art direction, I'm gonna give it a freaking damn 12 or 15.
You're breaking the rules, Shin.
Yeah.
It breaks the 10.
For a little bit that I've seen, the UI is impressive. I want more games to look that slick.
The UI, everything about the UI, everything about the music, everything about the gameplay itself, and its classic JRPG mechanics as well, together with the amount of Persona you could find. Whew.
Persona 5 is the only game I've ever seen that has memes coming off of it just because of how sick the menu looks.
Yeah, and plus the songs are memes as well.
God, yeah, everything.
And the freaking characters are memes.
Yeah.
Everything's a freaking meme in that game.
Yeah. I guess I'll just say my slight history with it is that is absolutely a game I really want to play. But long story short, and I know people are gonna say, and if they do say it in the comments, my reasoning for not playing Persona 5, I actually have it. I have the steelbook in my room. I can play it whenever I want, but I'm not going to until I've checked out the rest of the series. And while I know everybody's gonna say, "Oh, you don't need to play the rest of the games to understand Persona 5," that's not the reason I do it. The reason that I do it this way is that any iteration, it's like if you went to an old Final Fantasy versus, I don't know, like Final Fantasy X or something. Like, they're still turn-based, but they've done so many improvements in between that time that it's hard to go back, or it's hard to appreciate changes if you do it out of order. So for me, it's like, I want to check out a little bit of Persona 1. I don't know if I'm going to beat it. Persona 2, 3, and 4, like, I've never played a single Persona game. So for me, it's a matter of when. At some point this year, I'd like to start that series when I have the time. And really just check it out, because it's more appealing to play older games and then see it get better. Like we talked about quality of life changes for like Samus Returns. It's really cool to see that if you've been a fan of the series and they finally addressed something. Same thing with Monster Hunter World, which just came out. They've done so many great changes that it's great to finally see it after knowing the problems or issues that people might have had before, and they're fixed, or they've been streamlined, or they've been made better, faster, and just more satisfying. So that's why I refuse to play Persona 5 now until I've played the other ones. It just wouldn't feel right to me. But that's the only reason. There is no other reason why I would not want to play. Every single time I see someone gush about it, I'm just like, I wish I was there, but I can't. Like, I gotta show some restraint because it is freaking rough.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yeah,
the game looks solid. It looks great.
You were talking about improvements and stuff like that, and I think one of the biggest improvements in Persona 5 is the dungeon design, from what I've seen over previous Persona games.
Yes.
I've only done the first major story arc, but even in that one, I was surprised by how elaborate the first major big dungeon is, and what you can do in it, and the minute-to-minute gameplay.
Imagine the rest of the dungeons.
Yeah.
I can attest. God damn.
I'll definitely keep playing. Yeah.
Alright, I don't want to gush anymore about Persona. Keep going.
Okay, so, I mean, this is the big moment, isn't it?
This is one of the reasons why I keep Persona 5 on the second spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Shin the honor here. Shin, what is your game of the year 2017?
Nier Automata.
Yeah, and hold on, before you go into it, Marcos, what is your game of the year 2017?
Nier Automata.
Yeah. And guess what my game of the year 2017 is?
Drakengard 3. No, Nier Automata.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, I mean, why is this game so awesome? Who wants to start?
Oh gosh.
God.
There's a lot that we can talk about. And
Yeah.
not just Nier Automata.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go, I think it would be good, for context, for everybody who, if you don't know who Yoko Taro is, he is a director that's been around since the PS2 era. Maybe a little earlier than that, but I don't know him like for anything he's done before Drakengard 1. But pretty much like at the late end of 2016 was when I was acquainted with Yoko Taro and his games, up until February of 2017. I think. Yeah, that was around the time when I beat Drakengard 3. So I played all the games in the span of about a year. It was a great time. Definitely some frustrating moments due to controller issues or what have you. But yeah, the guy's weird. Straight up, he's a very unique director, I would say.
Definitely.
For some people it might not jive, but he's never had his big break because he usually has these very interesting, almost rebellious storytelling methods. And they all work, and the characters are unique, and you'll never forget a Yoko Taro game. I will tell you that much. You will never forget it, for better or for worse. But the gameplay's always suffered. They've always been very clunky or tedious or repetitive. I don't know. It's kind of redundant, but you know, it's just it's always faltered. It's always had some problems, and it could have been better. Nier and Drakengard 3 got kind of close. Nier's combat was serviceable or okay, but it didn't have any depth to it, so you know you can kind of just get through the game and breeze by it, which is kind of nice if you just want to get through the story. Drakengard 3 got close with some more weapon choices and slightly more combo strings, but it really suffered in performance, and that game should not have shipped in the state that it was in, I'll be honest, because, oh my lord, that game was a problem despite me loving the characters in it.
Originally, it was supposed to come out on PS4, actually.
Yeah, but they didn't have the budget, which is just...
They didn't have the budget.
And that's the other thing, too. Yeah, it's just like this guy's constantly been like getting the scraps for years. You know, like if a game came out and people loved it, it is not because the game was like perfect. They had flaws, but it's people who see the appeal of it even beyond its flaws. But Nier Automata is a special case where finally, almost like a dream, it gets announced that it's a platinum game rather. It's weird how that company works, but with the name like that. But it's a game being done by Platinum, and it's a Yoko Taro game. And lo and behold, like 7 years after the 2010 release of Nier, we finally get Nier Automata, and people couldn't believe it. Like, I wish I was there for context, but you know, me being a late fan, I wouldn't know the huge deal of like getting a Nier sequel, so I didn't freak out when it was announced. But that was the reason. Like, that announcement is what kickstarted me into getting educated and you know, seeing the rest of the series. But yeah, it's crazy. If you don't know who Platinum Games are, they've done some of the best like 3D action games you could think of. They've done Bayonetta. Even some of the staff worked for Capcom, so they originated like with Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, Okami, which is one of my favorite games. Good lord, was directed by Hideki Kamiya. He's done some of my favorite games, period, like of all time. So the pedigree for Platinum is already impressive enough, but then their games always faltered in terms of story. They were always very campy stories, or stories that are like visual gags, or not meant to be taken seriously at all, I would say. You know, and it worked for what it was, but you never really thought about it too much. So then you have this perfect melding of a really great studio that has phenomenal gameplay. Smooth 60 frames is always their priority. Like, they pride themselves on that, regardless of what they have to like downscale or do what they have to do to make that work, to make their combat as great as it can be. Tons of depth to the combat as well. Like, these guys are known for their fantastic gameplay. They are one of the most beloved like third-party developers, I would say.
Sure.
I don't think I'm reaching for that, but you know, then you get Yoko Taro, which his games have always had fantastic stories, but the gameplay falters, and you have like both of these teams covering for, I guess, their weaknesses or not their strong suits, and what you get is a game that honestly stands for what I love about video games, and the things that I wish more video games would do or could be.
You get the best of both worlds, essentially. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm gonna stop because I can go into full gush mode. I'll let you guys have it for a bit.
Well, that was sort of the background, the pre-story of prior to Nier.
Yeah,
Automata.
So they know, I was a huge deal even beforehand.
Yeah. You guys actually played through all of Drakengard and the first Nier before you got into Automata, right? I only played through Nier. I did not play Drakengard, and even I was excited when the game was announced. A friend of mine showed me the first Nier a couple of years ago. It must have been 2012, 2013. We played through the game together, and then we went back and watched on YouTube some of the differences on subsequent playthroughs. And I was really impressed with the storytelling in that game, how bold it was and the directions it went into. And so I was excited when I heard that Platinum was working on a Nier sequel. I was excited that a Nier sequel was being developed at all, to be honest. I could not believe it at first. One of my favorite videos on YouTube is one of the first Nier Automata trailers, and it shows this one boss fight with the Twitch chat reactions, and people are just exploding at the gameplay and the music and everything. It's one of my favorite videos to watch. Yeah, I mean, where should we even start with the actual game? The gameplay, the story,
Oh, man, it's really hard.
the endings.
Gosh, like, should we go spoiler free and then just I don't know.
Probably spoiler free, I would say.
Okay, I'll try and do my
then.
best. Okay, so I will state that there's a lot to love here that we will not be able to say, but trust me, you need to go and buy this game. Like the fact that it is number one on all of our lists, please, if you could play any game of last year that you might have been, if it was under your radar for whatever reason, please consider this game. It is, oh my lord, everything from the characters, the how well the writing is foreshadowed throughout the events of the story. Oh my lord, I'd be remiss if I did not talk about the music. Every single time a new track showed up in the game, I literally paused the game for a minute just to say, oh my god, this music, and just listen to it for several minutes on stream, but nothing happening because I was completely mesmerized.
Every track is
Okabe
amazing.
He's one of the best composers in the industry. For my money, I'd say he's the best. He's my favorite composer in the industry. There's not been a single soundtrack I've listened to from him that has disappointed me. It all fits the mood, and they're so good that you listen to them even without the game, long after you're done with it.
I will say Persona 5 kind of fights with the soundtrack with that game, but I still like Automata a bit more in terms of soundtrack.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't blame you. For me, I feel like it feels more in terms of how it's not even just the soundtrack, it's the way that throughout these games, Okabe really likes to use dynamic music, whether it's in Drakengard 3 with the whole intoner mechanic and the whole song motif to that entire game, or Nier Automata takes it a step further where there's several layers of either quiet vocal or dynamic versions, or versions that play when you're in a fight. It all fits, it all works, it is seamless as you can ever get, and it completely sells me on every moment and elevates those moments to greater heights just with the attention to detail. It all works because it all goes back into the narrative, and the gameplay complements it so well.
Yeah, since you mentioned this sort of soundtrack gameplay, how they are intertwined, the same is true for the story too. The way the game tells its story only works the way it does because it's a video game. There are some moments where it does something you can't believe it just did that, what it just did. I obviously won't go into examples, but there's a couple of moments that are magic moments probably for for the rest of my life. Like, some of these moments will always stick with me.
This is a game that I think all of us, regardless of like, to what degree, like anybody who plays this game thinks about it even after they beat it. Like, there's so many things that can apply to real life, because this isn't really a spoiler, but it's basically androids versus machines, and it deals with existential questions, basically. And a lot of that stuff I think about on a daily basis, whether it's a side quest that really made me think based on the outcome, or things that happen with these characters that just feel like they kind of hit close to home, or like I could make a choice like that and probably mess up. There's some really great stuff there. There's even stuff that if you have a good eye for it, you might find some answers before they even unveil them to you. And that's a great thing about Taro's writing, is that it never comes off as being preachy. And by that I mean, he shows you scenarios, but he doesn't really paint it in a black and white picture. Sometimes it is just an outcome that you have to accept, or it is just straight up something that happened that you have to deal with. Sometimes he makes you think about it more so than just giving you the answer, basically. Even in interviews outside of the game where people have questions about certain elements that might not have had an answer, he will still not give an answer to some of those from what I've seen. He'd rather keep it a mystery, kind of like when you just read a book back in the day, or read a movie, or watched a movie, sorry. Where you would just take it for what it was, and it might not give you all the answers, but there's still plenty of stuff to really think about or make your own thoughts, and they're neither right or wrong. It's just what you take from it. And I wish more games did a narrative like that, where it really just sticks with you way after the game is done. He's one of the best writers, I would say. Like, it's not even just in terms of how he writes, it's also the characters. Maybe it's because I've played them all in the span of 2017, or rather 2016 and 2017. But playing through all those Taro games kind of cements how good he is at writing these characters. They all have way more depth and dimensions than most other characters you'd find in any other storytelling game, if I'm being honest. They all have their own goals, they have their own motivations, they have their own struggles that they have to deal with. And the voice actors in this game are exceptional. Some of the best voice acting I've seen. And I know with most games, it's usually point of contention whether you go with English or Japanese. I will say, at least, and you guys can disagree or agree, I think that both of these are on equal footing. My sister played through the game in English and really got the same emotions and the same context as she would with Japanese voices. And it's a preference thing at that point, honestly. If you prefer one, pick one or the other. But this isn't Xenoblade Chronicles 2 where one's just better in some areas than the other. This is some of the best voice acting I've seen in a game. Wendy Lee is actually a voice actress herself, she was the voice director on this game. So good lord, everybody just does a stellar performance. She knows what she's doing. Like, some of the best directing I've seen, because all of those are delivered exceptionally well, even to the point where some of that stuff is foreshadowing that I would have never caught on my first playthrough. It's all great stuff.
Yeah, you've got a special game when you have a platinum developed game with really, really slick gameplay, incredibly smooth, and it looks good. It's just super fun to play, but then, in my opinion, the gameplay isn't even its biggest strength. You've got a special game in a situation like that.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. The gameplay is great. I forgot to mention it because of all these other things. It's insane.
Yeah. It's more so the writing, and not just the story, but also the different themes and motifs that it presents, and that really make you think, not just about the game, but about life in general. I think it transcends the medium in that way. It's a piece of art, in my opinion. Shin, do you agree? Do you disagree?
I agree with everything you say.
Good.
Honestly.
Good.
Honestly, especially since I've played Drakengard since the beginning when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's an OG.
I'm kind of an hipster, I guess. But ever since I played Drakengard 1, I've enjoyed that game quite well, even though there were so many faults to it. I'm switching from Nier Automata to Drakengard, I'm sorry, but...
Yeah, okay, fine, go ahead.
Just thinking about Drakengard 1, how much it grew from that point, I didn't think it would have another game, by the way.
Yeah. That's the main thing, too.
At
the time, you could never
it,
count out a sequel for any of his games. You would just hope, you know.
And it was that one rare kind of gem kind of game that is in the back of my mind through the rest of my life when I played it. And I was trying to remember, what is the name of that game that I just played? And how the fuck did I play this game, and why the fuck was it created the way it was? The storytelling was the most bizarre thing I've seen out of the rest of the video games I've seen at the time.
Yeah, it's weird.
It was so bizarre. But the
For real,
gameplay...
like, I know most people probably won't go into it, but shout out to sentient flying babies. Don't ask. Play the game.
Oh my god! The gameplay had so many faults, plus trying to 100% the game and get the final ending was tedious. But it was fun. For some reason. The game had so many freaking weapons that you could find and get through secrets or through missions and all that. It had variety. That's the thing. Drakengard had variety, which I liked.
Yeah.
And a lot of the weapons were unique to themselves, and you get different buffs. And plus, you can equip several weapons in Drakengard 1 itself. You don't stick to just one. So you can go in between healing yourself, doing big bursts of damage, or I guess doing a little bit of CC here and there. But some of the weapons look really cool in terms of their effects back at the time. Plus, the dragon missions were amazing as well. Not gonna lie. It was unique to have air missions as well as ground missions with the dragon itself at the time too. Not a lot of games did that. And I keep thinking of that one game. What was it? Something Dragoon. Something Dragoon. I can't
Panzer
remember.
Dragoon?
Panzer Dragoon. It reminded me of Panzer Dragoon a little bit. I was like, oh, I got a little bit of Panzer Dragoon, but I get to go on the ground a bit.
Yeah, the aerial fights are definitely the best part, I would say. But the ground missions did have some uniqueness to it as well.
But of course, it's like a Dynasty's Warriors game where it gets repetitive, and you have swarms of armies and enemies and all that. What else can I say? The story itself is the most fucked up thing, as I said again, that I've seen in video games in those recent years. And I love how Yoko Taro went beyond the boundaries with his game. Even though he didn't have much of a budget with Drakengard 1 because there were cut parts, and especially with endings, I'm not going to spoil.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the way he taught it, I felt like the game had so much ambition. And especially the final boss fight is one of those boss fights that I cannot forget. Actually. Not going to spoil that either. I cannot forget that. Even if I didn't remember that name, I remember that boss fight, honestly, vividly. Not remembering the name of the game. I was like, what the fuck am I playing?
You're still fighting the boss in your mind right now.
Especially the ending after that boss fight.
Yeah.
Not gonna spoil that either. I keep repeating myself.
Yeah.
Holy shit! I was like, it was one of the best games I've ever played, and one of the worst gameplay shit that I've ever seen. But anyway.
God.
It was mixed. I'm sorry, I'm not talking about Nier Automata here. Anyway, what made me so happy about the rest of the series is that Drakengard brought about Nier itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just Yoko Taro's silly freaking idea just to bring Nier out of Drakengard's final ending. I'll say that.
And what's great is that, all these years later, we still have the Yoko Taro weirdness and all that, and the boldness. I did a review for Nier Automata as well on my channel, and I start the review off by basically saying that every once in a while you get these video games that just do their own thing, that just do things very differently than anyone else. But they're usually not the greatest games because they stumble a bit, because they try something new. But there are games, and these are even rarer cases, where you have a game that does things differently from almost everyone else, and yet still completely and utterly 100% succeeds at everything. And Nier Automata is one of those games, in my opinion. It's not just my game of the year, it's one of my favorite games of all time now. And I love it. Although I will say there is one pitfall if you haven't played it yet, and if you do plan to pick it up. There's one pitfall, and we've talked about this a couple of times amongst each other.
Yep.
The first time you see the credits, which can happen after maybe 8 hours already, do not stop playing the game. You have to keep playing the game after you see the credits for the first.
Yeah, we got to beat this dead horse if we have to, because my God, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
People, like, the Square Enix gives you a direct message to keep playing the game, and we can't spoil why, but we'll say this: the series, Yoko Taro's games, have always had multiple endings and different scenarios the more you play them. If you want full context, I guess I would say there's like 3 main playthroughs, and I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. It's just context. But that's all I'm gonna say. But absolutely, you need to play more of the game after the first ending. You are missing out on so much of the game if you don't. I know you might think that you're done with it after ending A. It's not enough. You cannot say that you have beaten the game and seen all that it has to offer if you've only done that first route. You just can't. And I can't explain why, because I don't want to spoil it for you, but trust me, it is absolutely worth it that you keep going. If you loved what you played already, you have to go back.
Definitely.
And one last thing I will also say about Automata, if we're done with the gush fest, because it's hard to do a gush fest with spoiler free. Because my God, I could be here all night. But no, the last thing I will say is that the game itself, like you were saying before, Zigo10, it does so many things that can only be done in the context of it being a video game. Like, there are sequences, there are interactive moments, and there are just things that mess with player expectation that a movie could never do and a book could never come close to giving you. At most, it could give you like a fake psych ending or something, and that's it. But this is just subverting expectations and achieving what it sets out to do with multiple playthroughs and endings. But even more than that, it's also that the context of the game, with you controlling an android, whether it be 2B or whoever else, like your faction is a faction of androids versus machines. And it's not just fluff. It's not just like a sentence that's just thrown in there for context. You are an android. Like, there is a chip system in the game where you can customize your skills because you're an android. It's a chip system that is ingrained and it's organically there. Same thing with like saving, same thing with how you fast travel. There are so many little details that justify what you are and fully taking advantage of that. And it also plays a major role in the story, which we won't get into. But it's all carefully thought out. It's all well done. It's so carefully thought out where, like I've said, there are things that are foreshadowing. You'll have questions. You'll have so many questions. And that's kind of the beauty of it. You're stuck thinking about this game even when you're not. Like, as you play through the game, when I had to go to work after doing a session of this game, I was nonstop thinking about either the side quest I just did or what was happening in the story and making my own theories and speculation. And of course, you get some of those answers, but it's like, man, it's hard to put down once you start it, I have to say. one other thing that I will say, because I know some people are kind of against this practice, there is some DLC, but it's ultimately harmless. You do not need it to enjoy the game. You will not feel like you're not getting the complete experience. It's all just little optional, I think, like either fighting challenges or some like cosmetic stuff. You don't really need it. I still haven't bought the DLC. At some point I want to check it out, but
I haven't checked it out either.
Just don't worry about that fact. You don't need the DLC to get the full experience. Trust me, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's something you have to play. Mm-hmm. If it's not your thing, I understand. If you tried it, you gave it a college try-ish and would say that's fair, but you have to at least consider it. It's one of my favorite games of all time, but even when I played it, I said that it's been 10 years since I've even felt these emotions from this game. It's been so long that I've felt that a game just acknowledges what I love about video games, and quite to that degree. Even in terms of how it uses dynamic music, I thought nobody appreciated that like I did growing up, and I wish it stayed as a mainstay thing because it elevates games to new heights that honestly go underrated. But even just little things like that, or even just the storytelling, and it's something that lasts me for years. I'm still thinking about this game. I recently played it with my sister and introduced her to it, and now she's a diehard fan too. It's something that I think a lot of people can understand and relate to and really get tons of worth out of it. Like, by all means, like, if you're gonna pick anything else on this list, check the game out. The last thing I will say is the caveat of sadly the woefully unsupported PC version. You can get this on PS4 and PC. However, the PC version has not received I don't think it's gotten a patch since launch.
Really? Which
is very laughable and very disappointing.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to need to find some mods or some things that'll make the game perform better on PC. But after that, it should be okay. But definitely, if you want to go hassle-free, just stick with the PS4 version. It's stable, it's gotten updates, and it works just fine. But yeah, the PC version, just beware, you're going to have to do some tinkering to get it to work properly.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think Jim Sterling sums it up pretty well. I agree 100% with what he said. He said at the end of his review, if history forgets this game, fuck history.
Then fuck history. Yeah. Oh my god. I'm so happy he loved the game too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's unforgettable. It really is.
Okay, do we have anything to add to Nier Automata? Without spoilers,
one thing I'll
obviously.
say too, if anyone is interested in the actual story, like the overall universe of Nier and Drakengard, please play Drakengard 1.
Yeah, at the very least, I understand that it might be hard for some people. At the very least, if you want to get the most out of the game, at least check out Nier. I'm a little bummed because you're only going to be able to play that on PS3 and 360. I would love if they just re-release it. It doesn't even have to be a full-blown remake, but just re-release it on PS4 or PC, for God's sake. Like, I feel like more people should have that context, honestly.
I honestly think they should have a remaster of all the games, honestly.
Nice.
Not just Nier itself.
I wish that too, but it hurts even more with having a Nier sequel, and it's just like half the people probably don't even own a PS3 or 360 anymore, you know? It's just like, yeah, at the very least, if you can, please get your hands on the original Nier. It's a fantastic game in its own right. You don't absolutely need it to enjoy Automata, but trust me, the game gets elevated when you have that experience.
And
there's
honestly,
some really nice things for fans.
There are references for Drakengard and Nier Automata as well.
Yeah.
So for people who, like me, who just love all the games
definitely
itself,
if you're crazy enough, go for all of them.
If you want to do it, and if you want to delve into the actual story and look up lore, play Drakengard 1. Drakengard 2, not really, but you could still play it.
I mean, you still can, yeah, but...
you still can play it. Drakengard 3 is a must as well, I'd say.
Yeah.
But, and then, what? In terms of the way people should play, it should be Drakengard 1, Drakengard 2, Nier, then Drakengard 3,
And 3. Yeah,
then
basically
you
order of
go to
release.
Nier Automata. Even though you can go straight from Nier to Nier Automata, you could still do that.
Yeah.
But this is according to release, and they've gotten some references from previous games for the next release and onwards.
Yeah.
So it's just good to
I'd
just see that progression.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this as well, because you and me both, Shin, you already know.
Yeah.
If you absolutely don't have the consoles to play them, or you can't get past the gameplay, or it might not be for you, I need to recommend a very important YouTube channel, which I'm sure a lot of people in the community have known about.
Yep.
But if you just want the story and a little bit of the analysis behind it and an explanation for a lot of things, definitely go check out Mr. Klemps. He is a really good channel on YouTube. He's done analysis on all of the games, breaks down what things could mean or what things could be hinting at in future games in the series, and as well as his own opinions. But they're all really great videos. If you want the breakdown without, if for whatever reason you can't or don't want to play them, at the very least, go check out his channel. To get at least some context before you get into Automata. If you really don't have the time, I understand, but definitely check out his videos. They're all great stuff.
Yeah, I also recommend Valkyrie Aurora as well. Both Clemson are kind of talking to each other now too. They're both very good with their lore when it comes to Drakengard and Nier. Check her out as well.
Alright, and I think that just about does it for our podcast. Our 2017 Game of the Year discussion. This has been going on for almost 3 hours now. I did not expect that. Definitely not. But I'm glad that you guys had the time and stuck around with me and talked about these great games with me. It's been a great talk, I think. And,
yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait to edit these 3 hours and upload it to YouTube.
I pray for you. In case anybody does want to know, you guys can find me at Twitter. My Twitter is VFXMario. I do have a YouTube channel going by the same name, but I don't upload too much there. I really need to make a better habit of uploading my past broadcasts on Twitch. I need to really fix that at some point. But the main place you'll find me is my Twitch, which is the same name, VFXMario. I stream pretty regularly. I can't say daily, but pretty close. Just employment gets in the way sometimes, but currently playing Monster Hunter Worlds, getting back to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, so if you want to see more of that game and see what it's all about, by all means, stop by. And usually a chill time, so I'm done. I'm done doing my shameless plug.
Okay, Shin, where can people find you?
Twitter's Shinuchi3, Twitch Shinuchi, YouTube Shinome. I hardly use that channel anyway. But hey, it's there.
I'll link it all in the description for sure.
Okay. And pretty much, there's my shameless plugin really fast.
Nice. Okay, yeah, thanks guys for taking the time, and thanks to the listeners for taking the time as well, for listening to this, for being interested at all. And have a good one, guys.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.
Bye.